I feel like the talent level has increased substantially in the Valley in recent years. I mean, they are doing some incredible. They are bigger. They are faster. They're doing the craziest things. They're trying to get work in the off season and everything. And then when they come out in the fall season, it just looks terrible. All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Coaches Cut Up. We have a special presentation this time around. We had a coach reach out to us asking for a little bit of help, mostly around like strategy and X's and O's. And as we kind of dived into the film a little bit, and us and the rest of the coaches, we came to the same conclusion we typically come to. We don't typically care about what kind of offense or defense you run. We usually heavily scrutinize the technique. One of the things, as we started asking more questions about, how do they set up the day, why that strategy, all these other things, we basically boiled down to two things that, well, maybe a few different things we're going to cover today. One being the biggest thing is the practice plan. How do you set up your actual practice plan? What is a practice plan? People tell me, oh, my practice plan is we're going to practice these plays and we're going to scrimmage, an hour of offense and an hour of defense. Like, that's not a practice plan. Just to be 100% clear, it's not. It's got to be written up. So that's what we're going to cover a little bit today. So as always, welcome Coach Mike and also Coach Ralph, part of the family. We've been coaching for a combined, maybe close to 50 years, I think is what it is.
Yes, Bobby.
Yeah, every single level from the youngest of young, down to the 5U and 6U, all the way up through 18 years old at the high school level. So it's going to be to us, it's very, very basic. But to a lot of the coaches out there, it is painfully obvious to us that you guys just don't have a practice plan at all. And it shows every week. And when we talk about everyday drills, when we talk about opening stretches and all the different ways you can incorporate getting better, it's just obvious to us that you guys just aren't doing that to be critical. Also, the reason why we want to help out this coach in particular is because, one, it's a young coach, and me and Mike started coaching when we were young, so we want to help. And two, an actual coach reaching out for help is just a big deal to us. Not many coaches reach out to help. A lot of them have, like when we talk to Coach Colson, and an ego thing where they don't think they need the help or want the help. They think they have it figured out. But you got to ask. Everything that we're about to provide to you guys today is not stuff that we invented. It's stuff we unapologetically stole, right? Whether it's from the college
100%.
level, high school level, other youth coaches, whatever it might be, we just thought, hey, that looks cool. We can find a way to use it, twist it up a little bit, make it your own, and that's all we're really asking all the other coaches to do. But you have to have certain bare minimums. So the first thing I think we need to go over is the overall practice plan structure, right, guys?
Yes.
100%. That's
What?
painful.
Yeah. So one
Painfully
key benefit to having a practice plan. So what do you think, Coach Mike? What's if you can think of one big benefit, what would that be?
It's just maximizing the impact of the time you have with your kids. You have a very strict amount of time that you have to work with, and you cannot be wasting time, you know, not being prepared. So if you want to get the most out of your practice, you have to be prepared. So that's the biggest thing.
Yep, definitely. What do you think, Coach Ralph? One big thing why I have practice plan.
It gets all your coaches on the same page. Head coach should come with a stack of papers, hand them out to each of your coaches. This is the plan for the day. You have to trust your assistant coaches to teach their specific areas, but everybody has a plan, everybody sees the time, and you're good to go. And you're all doing the same thing, working to the same goal.
Yep, I agree. And I would say one of maybe two things: efficiency and alignment. So a little bit like what Coach Ralph says, alignment. Everyone's got a lane. You have to divide and conquer every single day, because not one coach is going to be able to cover everything. And never should you have multiple coaches covering the same thing. It's a waste of resources, and you're wasting your time, you're wasting your kids' time, and you're actually not getting better or as good as you could be, right? You could be covering much broader parts of fundamentals, techniques, and the playbook, and getting better every single week, and really kind of increasing the gap between you and the competition just by being efficient with your practice time. I think that's the biggest thing. So I'll kind of demonstrate real quick. I got it up on the screen for the coaches and things like that, just to kind of open up the day. Right, this is a practice plan that's not necessarily for every single level. It's just a very basic one if you have just 2 hours to practice. And for most youth football teams, which is most of my viewing audience here, all you get is 2 hours, maybe 3 days a week. At the beginning, you have 5 days a week, but you can kind of play with it a little bit there. If you're high school, we have taken basically a college-style practice broken down. I think from USC is when we first kind of saw some of this breakdown. And then
Coach Carroll.
yeah, Coach Carroll when he was at USC and broke it down into basically a 2 hour segment that fit kind of the youth football world. So again, we just stole it. We didn't make it up. We stole it. And then the first thing we start off with is the opening whistle. So why is the opening whistle important at 6 p.m. And I have it listed by time too. So why 6 p.m. or whenever practice starts, I guess, for everybody, right? So why the
Right.
whistle?
Because that's how the game starts.
Yep, 100%. Like it doesn't have to be more complicated than that, right? Plays start and stop
Correct.
with whistles, and I think if you can condition your players to start and stop with whistles, it gets them used to playing to the whistle, stopping and starting with the whistle, right? And it's just one of those psychological things you can play with your players, right? You just as long as they keep hearing that every single day, 6 p.m. they hear the bright, loud whistle that goes off and it's time to start. And usually we started with an opening run, and it's not 2 mile run, right, Coach?
No,
So it's
absolutely not.
like a 50-yard to the fence and back type thing.
Yes.
It's not anything, you know, elaborate.
Nope.
Just get your blood going now, right when the whistle hits.
Right. So not a dead sprint, right? You'll have those that'll try to compete, always be at the front, and then you're gonna have those kids that are unapologetically okay with being in the back, right?
It also shows that we need to be there at 6 o'clock. We need to maximize our short time that we have between 6 and 8. So 6 o'clock whistle blows, you're running. Oh, you're just getting to the field. You don't have your gear on or whatever. Well, you're going to be behind. So 6 o'clock is the run, ready to go. Not just getting there and putting on your pads and messing around on the sideline. No, 6 o'clock, we go.
Yeah. Be on time. Parents, coaches, right? I know the players sometimes don't dictate that, but guess what, players? You guys can harass the heck out of your parents until they're tired of hearing you, right? All they have to do is be there on time. And that seems kind of like a lost thing as well, is just being on time and starting practice on time. But it starts with the coaches. If you're there and you're willing to show everybody there, 6 o'clock is when we start practice, and we're not slowing down for you guys. We're not going to wait for you guys. No one's that special, right? And coaches, you got to be there on time. If you're not on time, you're already wrong. You're already messing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, when we were about to finish that run, typically what we did was that lineup, right? So whoever finishes first gets to start at the front of the line. We divide up into depends on how big your football team, 5 lines, if you will, 5 lines of 5 kids or 6 kids, right? And then they line up for what we call ballistic or dynamic stretches, right? And so I can kind of show that here for just a second. Let me kind of bring up what we're talking about. When we talk about live stretches. So we have this goofy guy here. So this guy,
And we didn't always do it this way. We stole this.
yeah, definitely. Let me bring this up here real quick. Yeah, and this was completely stolen. So what the science behind stretching has changed since most of you coaches were kids till now. And it's actually been around for quite some time. So if you haven't picked up on this yet, you are very late to the party. So stretching, static stretching, where you're bending over, you're stretching, you're reaching your toes, doing all this stuff, and holding stretches for a certain amount of period is actually wearing out the muscle and actually, using up too much of that stretch strength that you're going to need, that explosive strength for football, and then your kids are going to come out very explosive. So you use dynamic stretching and ballistic stretching. Like I said, this is not something we made up. This is not something we think. We actually go with the science, trying to keep up with the times and the improvements. Coaches, you guys need to do that as well. So if you guys are still static stretching before a game, The science says don't do that before a game, do it after a game, right?
Hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
before a game, this is going to be the dynamic stretching. So we do, I guess this guy calls it knee hugs. We call it knee hugs too as well. And the way you would set this up, like I said, 5 lines of 6 people, you would have your quarterbacks, and this is where you get the repetitions for quarterbacks, right? Where you would have them call your cadence. You have a first string quarterback and a second string quarterback. They're always taking snaps. So at the start of these stretches, right, and they typically only go 5 yards, right? You stretch for 5 yards, maybe 7 to 10, and then you could sprint after that, which is an explosive thing. But every quarterback is saying the cadence, getting those lines started, and they'll start those stretches for 5 and then sprint for 5.
And they're
And it's
taking
not
this.
a race.
Yeah.
It isn't a race for the first 5 yards at all. So this is kind of some of the stretching that they have out there. Any guys want to add anything to that?
I think it's just really important that coaches don't get lazy during these stretches because players can very easily get lazy during this stuff.
And they
So
do.
a lot of times I did it with them because I needed to get ready for practice. Because if I'm going to be demonstrating, getting into stances, get offs, explosions, I will do it with them because it's important, all right? Because coaches pull muscles too. So make sure you're ready. And if you're not doing or if you're not capable of doing this stuff, hey, we're human.
At
Go do it
beginning
with
of the
them.
season, you'll get
Yeah,
better by the end.
yeah, you'll get better along with the kids getting better with it. So, and it keeps the kids engaged and it keeps them on their toes, making sure they're doing it right the whole time. So that's important.
And you can find a bunch of these stretches in a bunch of different ways that all these other teams do it. I'm not saying just the way that this guy is doing it is technically correct or anything like that, but you can find a bunch of these drills online. You really can. And you can find a bunch of different kinds of stretches that you can do. And really the goal is to keep it, that 15 minutes, right? I think is what we slotted for
Mm-hmm.
Bliss, and it's got to go.
Right.
Another twist that we like to put with it, and again, when you're doing these stretches and you have your quarterbacks taking snaps, you're still coaching right from the get-go. One, coaches make sure they're not being lazy and they're actually going fast. You have to bring the energy right out the gate. So when they're finishing up this run, you guys should be on top of them. 5 lines, 6 lines of 5. Hurry up. Coach it, or captains at the front raising your hand. If you're first in, raise your hand. Let everybody know where the line starts. You should have your cones already set up for not just the ballistic stretching, but you should have the cones set up for the drills. If you are setting up drills as they're finishing a run, coaches, you messed up already. You guys should actually be early, ready for these drills to come. And I know it's tough sometimes getting off of work, but guess what? All that is excuses at the end of the day because we've been through it already, and we were able to do it, and it can be done. So this coach, and you guys see this coach guy's going crazy here for a second? Can you see him?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So he's bringing that energy right now. He's setting the tone. He's saying, guess what, guys? Here, make sure everyone else can see this here real quick. Got it. Okay, good. He's setting the energy. He's saying you have to go full speed with this. You can't dog this. They're going to go about 5, maybe 10 yards here, and then you're going to see the kids sprint through. And it's a sprint, too, as well.
It's explosions. Get to top speed in that first 5 yards.
Yep. And like
And
I said,
again, it's not a race. You have to stretch properly. Who cares if you're the first one done? But are you stretched? No.
yeah,
You just got there first.
Yeah, this isn't a be first. This is a max effort. And coaches,
Mm-hmm.
your coaching point here is you're watching. You see how he's doing those high knees really quick, and then watch that kid explode and get out. You have to make sure that every kid is doing that. If any kid is slacking off, and you might see sometimes during this video, this coach says that's not good enough. We're going to do it again, right? And we're
Right.
only going to move on from this drill unless you do it right. And he says in this drill too is by the end of this you should be drenched in sweat. This is not really an easy thing to go through, especially at the very beginning of practice. It's very physically taxing, right? Because you're stretching, you're doing some football movements during your stretches, and then you're sprinting, you're exerting yourself. It's max
Right.
effort the whole way through.
And this should get easier for your kids as the year progresses, right? First couple of weeks are brutal. This part it usually is brutal for first year kids. They're just not used to moving this way, and a lot of them don't even use a lot of these muscles regularly, so it can be very tiring.
Yeah, and again, you're practicing your snaps here. Every time that they go, don't use a whistle. This is our modification, right? Don't use the
Mhm.
whistle here. I would say just use the cadence, right, that you guys are comfortable with, and the coaches should be watching for that snap, making sure all the snaps are going well, right, and
Right,
making adjustments and coaching throughout the whole time. And then the other
right.
coaches are getting involved, making sure that everyone's got max effort and doing things correctly, not trying to just race for the sake of race, but actually getting a stretch in and doing max effort the whole way
Right, there
through.
should be no coach standing around looking on his
I
phone.
was just going to say that it's practice time for coaches too, and you've got to be coaching the whole time. You can't be chit chatting with your buddy on the side, talking to parent. No, this is your time. You only have 2 hours.
Yep.
You have 6 hours a week. That's not a lot of time to put in a game plan for the coming week. 6 hours, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's really short. You got to maximize the efficiency of your time, and all the coaches have to be engaged. And if you notice, if you look at this video, there's no waiting around in line. By the time they exert themselves, get through the line, turn around, get back to the front of the line, they're ready to go again. And you can tell in this video, look, he's
Look at
upset.
him.
He's yelling at his players. He goes, "That wasn't max effort. We have to do this over again. It's not good enough." So again, coaches, don't be afraid to do that. If you do this early on in the season, and you should start within, the first month where you have the 5-day-a-week practices, getting this down, because
Set expectations.
right, and you can do all kinds of different moves. This one they call the Frankensteins, which I like. This is good hamstring
Mm-hmm.
stretches and things. You notice it's not sitting and stretching, but it's keeping every move. There's no time for kids to talk or mess around in line, right? If you are those 8 and under coaches and you're saying, "Oh, my kids have no attention span. No, it's impossible to coach 8U." It's really not. If you give them something to do every second of practice, they don't have time to mess around. They're just going to be dialed in like, "Oh my God, this coach is moving me all over the field, telling me what to do. And if I don't listen, I'm going to look really dumb because I'm not going to know what to do," right? And we tell kids, if you don't know what to do, get back at the end of the line and watch the person in front of you, because you're not going to repeat it a bajillion times for every single player. They don't get that benefit. They have to watch everybody else to make sure that they do it right. So, any other benefits you guys see, coaches, before I move on to the next part of the practice plan? Remember, this is from basically 6:05 to what we have, 6:20, I think is what we have this one listed out at. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
just
it's
that
like
much.
15 minutes long. It's a great, like, full team effort. Plus, your quarterbacks get to practice their cadence because they're going to do this probably 5 times one way, 5 times back, different stress, 5 times one way, five, and they get to practice the rhythm of their cadence, and the team gets used to each quarterback's cadence.
Right.
That way their get-offs, they won't be brand new to them when they go to actual drills and actual live sessions.
Right.
So
And
it
hopefully you
all
have,
comes
yep.
together.
And hopefully you have coaches watching the snaps, correcting the snaps, pointing out good points, pointing out bad points. Did you have your hand underneath? Did you lift them up to the center? Was you hitting the top hand? That's the time to coach it up.
And coaches should know that they're going to be the ones watching this and not worrying about the effort during the drills. There's another coach that's going to be the first 2 lines, and the next coach is going to be the ones
Mm-hmm.
watching the back, making sure that they're moving up in the lines and ready and getting in their stance and that type of thing. No, there shouldn't be overlap
Right.
on positions, and
You
there
every
shouldn't be
every coach
coaches
should
standing
have
around.
their position, right? So if you're
Mhm.
if you're quarterbacks, you should be watching the quarterbacks. If you're a line coach, you should be watching the line. If you're wide receivers, you should be watching wide receivers. If you're running backs, you need to watch the running backs. If you're linebackers, you got to watch your linebackers in this drill, right? Because that competitive nature within the coaches needs to still exist even between the coaches, because at the end of the week, it doesn't need to be your group that gets blamed for why you guys did bad in the game, right? And so as a coach, you need to have that competitive spirit and says, "You know what? If there's an L, it's not going to be because of my group that messed up." Right? It needs to, and
Mm-hmm.
I know overall it's a team sport, but there's got to be that little competitive spirit within everybody that says it's not going to be my group. We're going to do awesome, right?
Yeah.
And that has to be true. So every coach, you have to split up your assignments. The head coach shouldn't be doing it all, or the offensive coordinator shouldn't be doing it all. Every coach is involved in every single drill. Just like these kids have no time to actually slack off, the coaches shouldn't either. All right, so I think we're good with that, right, guys?
Yep.
We can move
Mm-hmm.
on to the next thing. All right, let's move on to the next thing. oops. Let me share the practice plan here real quick.
There we go.
All right. So
Yeah, 15 minutes.
yeah, so we had it for 15 minutes. That went from 6:05 to 6:20. And if the head coach's job, in my eyes, or the way we ran it, Coach Ralph was responsible for making sure everything was on time. Because if you're a position coach or you're a coordinator, you're always going to want one more rep every single time. And the head coach is the one who puts his foot down and says, "We're moving to the next drill. I don't care. We're moving to the next drill." So we go to the water break, and you let your kids have your water break. I wasn't really a big thing for coaches being a part of the kids' water break. The kids, you have 5 minutes, and that's it. You're gonna spend some time with your guys for just a second. Get your water break. Usually by this time they're so tired that they're actually drinking the water, and they're not really chit chatting at least a little too much. But let them do that. And during the water break, we are setting up the everyday drills, right? I know that's a couple steps ahead, but we have the goal of the day coming out of water break, and then the everyday drill. So 5 minutes, and that's it. If you have 10 to 15-minute water breaks, I think you're doing it wrong. I think you're wasting time.
Yep.
It's not that they don't get enough water. Trust me, in 5 minutes, you can take down a whole water bottle easy. It's not a problem at all.
Plus, everything you just did, stretching out, warming up, now you just cooled right back down.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and you don't want to cool down too much, right? You still want your heart rate to go all the way down, right? You want it to just
Right.
relax, hit a steady state, make sure your muscles are still loose. You're just rehydrating, cooling down, and then you can go right back into it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so coming out of the water break, we do what's called the GOD, the God, basically, or the goal of the day. So, Coach Ralph, what's the goal of the day? What's the breakdown there? Why do we do that?
Goal of the day is when we everybody comes together, takes a knee, coaches are in front, and we explain what we're doing for that particular day. We're gonna put in a certain play. We're gonna explain what the play does, and we, kind of show what each position is going to be doing, and then we break apart. And it's really quick and simple. It's just, this is what we're going to do. Okay, line, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go with them. You're going to do this. You know, running backs, quarterback, you guys are going to be working together or separate, whichever the case may be, and explaining what you're doing for the day. So that way everybody's on the same page. Everybody's understanding what they're doing for the day.
Right. And that would be for like an offense day, right? So when you say, hey, this is the play we're going to
Correct.
run. So we break up our weeks. Maybe we didn't do this ahead of time, but we break up the weeks, right? You only have 3 days. We'd add an offense day, we have a defense day, and then we have a special teams and review day. That was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And that's how we broke it down. A lot of teams are trying to do both, and it's just not going to happen. I don't see how you can do that. I see teams try, and the results are on the field of how messy it looks, actually. Be concentrated and focused on the effort of the day. Like I said, it's about the minutes, not even about the hours. It's about the minutes that you can get in that are quality reps and minutes. So goal of the day, like Coach Ralph said, for offense, we lined everybody up. And we said, this is what we're going to run. This is the new play we're going to learn. We even had kids line up real quick, or if you're learning a new formation, whatever, just line them up real quick. Say, you come here, sit right there. And they don't talk, they don't do anything, they just stand there. And this is kind of how the play looks. And this is how the defense looks, right? This is how they like to line up. They like to run a 4-4, right? They got 2 D tackles. They like to line up here. Sometimes they go inside, sometimes they go outside. Here's their defensive ends. In a 4-man front, they shouldn't be standing up, but they're standing up, right? So you tell them all the little things on what to expect. And now I'm going to make a dig every single time a 4-man front with stand-up defensive end.
Thank you.
But yeah, so Coach Mike, what other things in a defensive day might we go over for the goal of the day?
Mainly it's just how to line up, usually. Especially if you are now in the meat of your season, your defensive goal of the day is going to be one, where you're lining up. Sometimes, and this is very rare, and I know a lot of defensive coordinators are going to cringe at this, we don't put in blitz packages or anything until right maybe in the middle of the season. Like I'm talking week 5. Like we're already 4-0, and then we might put in some type of blitz package.
Agreed.
So when like Coach Ralph says, "Oh, we're gonna learn a play today," a play,
One play.
one.
You might
Don't put
say
in
it's 2
three
plays because
plays
one
and a
goes to the right,
reverse.
one goes to
It's
the
gonna
left.
be all garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that. Put in one thing, and you
That's
learn that one
why
thing. You get real good in that day at that one thing.
That's why, like Coach Matt said earlier, you can't do offense and defense in a day, because you're not giving credit, you're not giving the attention each one needs. That's why one day, one thing. Offense one day, defense another day. You can't do both. You
Right.
just can't. And
And
have an efficient running.
And you're not even the goal of the day isn't even actually learning how to do that. That's next. This is just explaining what we're learning and kind
Correct.
of the overarching picture, what it's supposed to kind of look like. And then we go in to the details.
right. 100%. And again, this is for youth coaches. If you had 55 players and only one-way players, you had 11 starters on offense and 11 starters on defense that didn't play both ways, and you're doing high school college. Obviously, that's different. But for youth football in particular and a lot of high schools, this is really what you're going to have to do here. So again, and this all happens in the span of 5 minutes. Remember, it's go time. The pace never slows down. And if you look through this entire list, where's conditioning? Oh no, we don't have conditioning.
The whole is conditioning.
Yeah. The whole list is conditioning. Right? From the opening warm-up run really into those dynamic stretches, that's the pace for the entire day. So when goal of day is only 5 minutes, there's no time to mess around. There's not many people talking. Like, you only get this communication one time, kids. And like I said, in the first month, you usually get this sewn up and say, if you're messing around in the back and you don't know what's going on, well, next man up.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, there should be coaches on goal a day, just point a kid here, and he should pop up, run over there, stand there. You here, and there should be kids popping up and run into the spot and just stand there. They
Right.
should know
Um,
this. They should know that this is what it's going to be like. Right when goal a day starts, I'm gonna pop, squat, hit a knee, whatever, hit here. I'm gonna look at coaches, and when they point at me, I'm just gonna pop up and just do what they say.
Because
That's
look,
what
at
this should be like.
6:30, how many times have I blown the whistle in mid sentence? Up 6:30, let's go, move, because we got to do our everyday drills.
Right. And that's what we're going to get into. This is really the meat of it here. So the everyday drills and then the game plan implementation, they build off of each other, right? So the goal of the day says this is what we're going to do. The everyday drills are they change sometimes. There might be different focuses depending on, what the goal of the day might be, or what you're trying to improve upon, or what you did not do well at in the previous week. And you're going to target those things to get better at for everyday drills. But this is always run. There's no exception for the everyday drills. We have a bunch that we'll get through. So you'll have the everyday drills that you're going to build the movements, right? You're going to build up that muscle memory with these drills. That way the kids are not thinking about it in the game. They're not thinking about how to take a snap. They're not thinking about how to take a handoff. They're not uncomfortable in their stances. They're not uncomfortable in their get-offs. Like, you just name it, all the first two steps or the first motions that they do, it is muscle memory. It's not something they think about even after the first month. So when you go into really Jamboree, this stuff should be muscle memory all the way through. And then once you build up the motor skills, right, then you can go into game plan implementation. So if you're trying to run a trap scheme or pulling, or running backs have a certain motion that they're doing, or a quarterback has a certain drop they're doing, the everyday drills kind of work into the game plan. Like, so if say, hey, we're doing a 5-step drop this day, your everyday drill might just be an actual, just a straight 5-step drop, taking a step and doing a 5-step, not doing really much of anything else. And then the game plan implementation is, okay, we just did EDDs for a 5-step drop. These are the routes that we're actually throwing today, or these are the pitches that we're doing today. This is why we were doing reverse pivots, taking a snap, doing reverse pivots, whatever it might be. If you're running back, if you're, everyday drills, if you're taking handoffs, is it a dive? Are we taking 45-degree angle steps? Are we taking a flat 90-degree and taking a pitch? Like, you would practice that in your everyday drills to build up into game day implementation.
And
Anybody
coaches,
else wants to add
this
anything
isn't
else?
your time to relax.
No.
Coaches need to be coaching every rep. Like on the handoff drills, oh, that one was too high. Oh, you didn't open up high enough. You have to be coaching it every step. There's no time off for you either.
Right. Let's do one drill here real quick. We'll start, and we'll give examples as we go. And hopefully, like I said, some of these are ancient, so you're going to have to forgive us just a little bit here. So we have this guy, and this was just a basic running backs handoffs drill. And this is something if you're doing running
Video.
backs, what's that? No video yet? Oh, sorry. Let me get the video up real quick. Here we go. Thank you for the reminder. Okay,
There.
here's a video. This is going to be running backs the whole way through, and let me bring it up.
I believe this one's 25 seconds. Yeah. This is
Yeah.
when the meet starts at 25. Yeah.
So for these drills, this is something an everyday drill that you always have to do. That I know that we know every time we watch game film that none of you coaches are really doing. There's maybe a handful of teams, like 5 or less, that are actually practicing these things every day. Because just because you're getting away with it in scrimmages or getting away with it in the games, like we know you're not doing it just by the look of it. So what they do is they put running backs on each side and they hand off the ball to each other. So Mike, what are the coaching points here?
So this drill actually is what has traumatized a lot of the running backs that I have coached over the years. They despise this by the middle of the season because they've done it so much, and I hammer them on all the different things that a running back should be doing. This, in my opinion, is really sloppy. So some of these running backs, you'll see them come with the big arms and clamp down on the ball. They do a bunch of different little pet peeves that I had. So the main thing that you want in this is where your arms actually are at. The top inside arm, right? The inside arm should always be on top. It should always be up. So if you're getting, the handoff, okay, from, your guys, my right, your left, probably, that arm should be up, right? Because if it's not, your arm is going to block those real last second handoffs that can sometimes happen. Okay, that arm has to be up to prevent that fumble. Also, some of the arms are too far over and your elbow's sticking out. There's a lot of running backs that will hit the quarterback incidentally because they're lazy about that elbow. That arm has got to come across. That thumb, right? Thumb away from the body, just that's your distance. And it's got to be right above that nipple. Okay. And that bottom arm, don't get lazy. It shouldn't, your hand should not be at your belly button. It should be past your belly button. Those two ends, right, should clamp down on the ball. And it shouldn't be some monstrous thing. You don't want to block your eyes. It should be right at the chest, right across the belly button. That's more than enough.
So
And
why
you
don't you want to
clamp
block your
down
eyes?
when you
As a running back, you said don't block your eyes. I feel like it's a great point, right? So you have all these people that are coming way up top to clamp over the ball, and you say
right,
the arm's blocking the eyes. Why? For a
right.
running back, it
So
might seem obvious to some coaches, but
So you hear a lot of coaches, right, or a lot of parents or whatever, they're like, man, that running back's got great vision. No, he doesn't. He's just not looking at the handoff. He can see the blocking and the players coming at him without worrying about the handoff because he knows how to take a handoff. Okay. So as he's running to his spot, his designated hole, he's not worried about what the quarterback's doing. He's just muscle memory, his arms are where they need to be to receive a handoff, and he pushes his sternum to the ball as he's going to his hole. That's all he's doing. Once he feels that ball hit right there, that very right below that bottom rib, he collapses and it's automatic. And his eyes are always up. If you look, some of these players are actually looking down at the ball. I would be hammering them right here. I would make them do it again. And we would do this over and over and over.
So
And
whose responsibility is it for the handoff?
the quarterback is always responsible for the handoff.
Yes.
Always. It
Yes.
is never the running back's fault. If it is the running back's fault, it's because you as a coach did not teach them and drill this and hammer it into their skull until they were nearly crying.
Which
This
is
is
why we do this.
right. Every single offensive day I did this for running backs, and they hated me by the middle of the year. But you know
And
what?
how many
There
fumbles
were
did you have?
there were none. None. And the most hilarious story is when these kids got into high school, I hadn't coached them for years. I would come with a ball like at a fair and I would just reach it out to them and their arms would automatically move up to receive it. And they
You
just give
go,
me that look like, "Oh, that's not cool." Like it's just part of the muscle memory that you're building into them. That way, when it comes to critical game times, you're not worrying about this at all. Taking a handoff is the last of your worries.
Yep, 100%, 100%. And just to kind of cap off, like I said, everyday drills. I would say, there's at least 3 different groups going on, right? And we're just talking about the running
Yes.
guy. Like if it's an offensive
Mhm.
day, right? Has said, hey, our play involves taking a direct handoff, not a pitch or anything like that, or a mesh or whatever it might be. It's just taking a straight handoff, and the other 2 groups are going to be doing their own everyday drills as well. So this is just kind of an example for running backs right now on an
Right.
offense day. So we,
And I
we
would only have like 5, maybe 6, right, running backs if when we had decent sized teams, and
Mm-hmm.
that back and forth over and over and over and over. After 5 minutes, they they're sucking wind big time, and I'm still the whole time hammering them. What foot you stepping with? Where are your eyes at? Look at your hands are too far from your body. Hands are too close to your body. Don't it's too wide. What? And it was just constant for the entire drill.
Right. And then when you, we had a coach that used to say, when people get tired, they get dumb, right? They start
Mhm.
making dumb decisions, start doing dumb things, and the technique and the fundamentals really get relaxed, and it actually ruins a player if they're out of shape. But if you're doing this and they're getting tired and they're still stressing the fundamentals, they're going to last a lot longer and do things correctly when they're just out of gas. And they're still going to do things correctly even when they're out of gas.
Is
So
that conditioning, coach?
yeah, that's our conditioning, pushing the pace, right? And if the kids aren't going fast, if you're not getting through the line fast enough, or let's say you have 20 running backs, right? You would just
You
take
have a
10 in one
problem.
line and 10 in another. Yeah, you probably have too many running backs. So, but my point is you would split that line and mirror the drill, right? They could do
Mhm.
it both at the same time. Makes it a little bit tougher for the coaches, but it's that high repetition count that you absolutely need. And then Coach Mike, when you see somebody do it wrong, how long does the coaching take?
You have like 3 seconds max. Like,
Yep.
you did this. Oh, show them visually, quick blurb, next, right? Now, if they do the mistake again, the next time they come around, they do the same mistake twice in a row, then you might have to stop and be like, "What are we not listening? We're not what are we doing? What's the problem?" Because you don't want the kid just to continuously make the mistake over and over and over and over again, right?
Mm-hmm.
But usually it's a real quick correction and then back to the next one. Boom, 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 over and over and over again. And by the middle of the season, you get really, really picky about certain things. So, and that's what you want. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah. All right. So next drill, we got also a running back drill. Coach Mike had brought us up for this one. They set
Mhm,
up like basically cones that simulate offensive linemen here, and then they have a
mhm,
quarterback. And I would say if you're going to do EDDs together, you would have your actual quarterback and maybe even a center practice more snaps. That's a way to maximize these reps. Otherwise, probably the coach is the one maybe doing the handoffs here and not just checking to make sure the handoff is going well, like the running back is doing the proper fundamentals, like we just discussed right now, but
mhm.
also making the correct reads here.
Right.
So, Coach Mike,
And
take
this
us through this
y
drill.
yeah, so basically you're just gonna have 3 guys and you're gonna be standing behind the running back, and you're gonna give 'em direction, you go here, and you go here, right? And they're gonna step into a gap. Now this coach is saying, "Oh, this is for the running back finding the hole." I don't actually believe in any of that. The running backs find the hole that they see. So this is actually keeping your eyes up while taking a handoff. That's all this drill is. So the players will fill in certain gaps. The running back will take the handoff and he'll break through the hole. And if you get this going, if you have first, second, maybe a third string quarterback, right? You're just hammering this over and over and over. You should have a rotation where back goes defensive lineman to the next one, defensive lineman to the next one, defensive lineman back of the line type thing. This should be this rotation. And you should already know this as a coach how to explain this. You should not be making it up right before you're about to do the drill, right? You should already kind of know that this is the way that this drill is going to go. So this is great for a lot of the quarterbacks. Now a lot of times you don't mesh the EDDs, you know, quarterbacks and running backs together all the time. But this is one of those instances where you could. That way, the quarterbacks can get used to handing off the ball and carrying out a fake. But this is mainly for the running backs of keeping your eyes up, and you could get really, really in depth with what foot are you stepping with, false steps. You see that running back kind of hop. You can get on him about false steps. See that little hop? Ugh,
Little
gross,
hop.
right? What a waste of time, right? Take your step towards the hole, hands corrected, explode through the hole. So there's all these little things from a really simple drill that everybody should be doing every day.
Yeah, and even from a quarterback's perspective, and one thing, like you noticed, even in this drill, there's so many coaching points, right? Not just the false step, but even from a quarterback perspective, you know, I really don't like I think your two hands until you can finally go to one. Like he's got it down by his hip. That's not a secure handoff. He's just waiting for someone to come hit him or run into him, and that ball's going to come out. I would say also, is he actually looking this ball in for the running back? The answer is no. Look
Look
at his
how
eyes.
low it is too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the
He missed
handoff's
him.
not being taken
belt line.
right. The delivery is way too low. It's at the belt line, and he should be really looking all the way to the the running back into that gut and making sure that he actually has it the whole way through.
Is he even receiving the handoff
No,
right?
you see, I would be
Like
all over this, right? We're stopping it
right,
right here and there. I'll make him do it again. I could just
right.
tell from the back already. I don't even have to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
especially in this one, the coach, you should have, if you have a couple of coaches, it'd be great. So you have here, 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 but that coach should be coming off to the side, literally running over to the side, watching that handoff, and then run to the back again as he's coaching everything through. So, for you coaches that are kind of out of shape, this is your opportunity to get in shape. You're going to be doing a lot of back and forth, and you're going to be talking the entire time. So that's how you build your coaching vocal cords, right? I know there's a lot of us coaches who lose our voice in like the first week because it's been a long off season, So it happens. But
Yep, the voice is
this
out of
is how
shape.
you get in shape as a coach.
Yep, definitely. Any other coaching points here for the running backs in particular, or do we want to go on to the next video?
I could go all day.
That is true.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. Let's go. I mean, we'll even take it a step back here. Let me. Come on, let's play this guy. Come on, there we go. There we go. All right, next one is stances. My goodness. All right, so this one hurts a lot because I guess stances are just going away, especially on the defensive side of the ball. It's like, why get in a stance? Now the kid's getting a good stance, and they are slow, and they can't do it, and it's because kids are bigger these days. It's like, I don't understand that logic at all. Have you seen the NFL? Have you seen these 300-plus pounders? I see plenty of high school players. I've seen plenty of youth football players that are big, can get in a beautiful three-point stance. In reality, like coaches, again, the reason why your kids aren't able to execute, or I would say the reason why you lose games will always be the coach's fault. Will always be the coach's fault. And anytime you win a game, it's always the kids that won you the game. Coaches,
Amen.
you're never going to be able to get credit, ever. If you came in to get all this credit, you were in the wrong line of work, right?
Yes.
So anytime a kid messes up, it's the coach's fault. Stop blaming the kids, right? Because there's always a technique or a fundamental that just wasn't ingrained enough. And if you're not getting these kids in stances, it's the coach's fault. It's not because the kid is heavy or out of shape or anything like that. It's actually the coach's fault. So with this one here, especially for big guys, you see them, they're like stomping their feet because they're trying to get into a comfortable, hey, when you say feet shoulder width apart, right? Like kids don't really know what that means. What do you mean? Like just say, okay, if you draw a straight line from your shoulders down, straight down, that's kind of where your feet should be, right? Not overly wide. You don't want a big old frog stance or overly narrow and then you're off balance and all that stuff. Just have it a little bit wide. And that's what he does. And the next thing that this guy does that I don't see any coaches do is that sliding of that dominant foot. He likes to slide that right foot back. And some coaches say if you're on the left side of the line, you slide your left foot back. If you're on the right side of the line, you slide your right foot back. Whatever. Like, as long as you slide a foot back. All right? And for the big guys, this makes it so much easier for them to get in a stance because big old bellies get in the way when you're trying to get in a good three-point stance. And when you slide that foot back, it is a huge comfort relief for them to have that foot back. Now, I'm not saying track star or a 40-yard, dash stance, right? Just a little bit.
It's like toe to the instep,
Yeah,
right?
we're saying, about toe to the instep. Maybe these kids are a little bit far back. They go toe to heel at this point, which I guess that's okay. Not my preference, of course. And then they're saying roll these shoulder blades back and then sit it down a little bit, almost like you're about prepping for a bench press or anything. But really, right here, I like that sink right there. The chest is up. I always say eyes up, right? If you just say eyes up the whole time, if you can see straight ahead, typically your stance is going to be okay, right?
And it's not necessarily at the waist, it's bending your knees,
Yes.
squatting.
Again, if they're having trouble with this, or if your team is having trouble with it, you can go back to your ballistic dynamic stretching and start to incorporate things like duck walks, right? A bunch of different kinds of drills where we used to do a 2-step and a squat, and then 2 steps and then squat, like an actual feet flat on the ground, body lifter style squat to build up the hip flexor and the hip muscles and those thigh muscles, right? Quads, whatever, hamstrings, just so they can actually get in a proper stance. We used to do that in the first month, and then we kind of got rid of it once the kids finally developed that muscle a little bit, and then the linemen can work on it much later too as well. They can definitely get into it in these EDDs. But just the stances alone, and this is offense and defense. I think every player should know how to get into a 3-point stance, regardless of the position. I don't care if you're a wide receiver or quarterback. You should know how to get in a 3-point stance, if for nothing more than to help your teammates and hold them accountable. We're a 3-point stance. And we used to sit them in this motion here for a long time. During EDDs, like just getting in a stance.
Hold them.
We would just hold them right there. They're going to be so sore the next day. And coaches, guess what? You need to get in a 3-point stance too as well. You need to be able to do it. Barring some, lifelong surgery or anything like that just doesn't enable you to do it. A 3-point stance should be difficult for you too. I get it. It's going to be tough, especially in the early season, where you have to build up those muscles too, but the kids are going to respect you for it, right? This is a little bit of flat back. They like to put a lot of weight on that front hand. That's fine. I think that's appropriate for the youth level because 90% of you guys run the ball 90% of the time, right? So you're just always going to run. So you want to put some weight on that front hand for sure. But you don't want to put so much weight that if they smack the hand out that you just fall face first into the grass. You don't want to do that either. You want them, if you're going to smack that hand away, that they can at least get that first step and they can catch themselves. Like that's the kind of weight that you want. But it should be that they have to take that first step. If you slap that front hand out from underneath them and they just pick it up and they don't move at all, that means they're resting too far back, right? And you might be giving away stuff like pass plays and things like that if that's what you guys are going to do. Fine. I know a lot of coaches go in there and say we're going to throw 50-50 or we're going to air it out, we're going to air raid, and then first week of the season they're running the ball 90% of the time because they realize, we can't throw, right?
Yep.
Always, like I said, depending on what you got to work on, if you saw bad stances in the week before or you saw, bad get-offs or anything like that, you can have them take their first 2 steps and whatnot, and you can coach it up just a little bit too as well. So that's just a little bit about stances. Coach Ralph, Coach Mike, anything to add for stances?
Nope.
Yeah, every day.
We
did it every day. Linebackers would do stances every day. I would literally just throw the ball somewhere, and they would go and line up. And I'd pick it up, I throw it another spot. Another couple linebackers go, line up, and they would just get in their stances. Proper depth, proper alignment, get in your stance. That's all. We would do that. It doesn't have to be this complicated procedure. It's just you have to actually practice it every day. You have to make it second nature.
Yeah, I agree. There's one more video that I kind of wanted to put out here. Again, you're practicing stances. This is another everyday drill where you can actually have somebody in front of you. It's a little bit more of a thud drill is what we call it instead of live. So it's not like a full-blown competition drill. This is just for the sake of getting the fundamental right. So the defensive lineman is going to offer like 10% resistance. He's basically going to let the other man win because the whole point is not to win. It's not a competition drill. It's just to make sure the offensive lineman is doing it correct. So we would have what's called boards, or you can use step-over bags or regular bags, or if you don't have any of those things, there's still no excuse. You could put carpets down like we used to do, and we run basically like an arrow drill where you just run straight forward. You have all your cleats in the ground. You have a wide base as an offensive line, and you're taking basically like 6-inch steps, right? You're not overstepping because the moment an offensive lineman takes his big old foot and oversteps, he's going to be off kilter if he gets hit from the side. Anything like that. And there's offensive line drills are kind of tough because it always depends on the kind of offense that you run. is kind of the EDDs that you might need to run as well. So when I was looking for offensive line drills, it was a little difficult to find something pretty basic. But yeah, 6 steps. You want to keep as many cleats in the ground as possible, just from some basic coaching standpoints. Let me see if I can get this guy to actually run the drill instead of explaining it. And so he's taking just a short 45-degree step. You can practice your 90-degree steps, your 45-degree steps, and then flat steps too as well, or your scoop steps or bucket steps, however you want to do it. And basically the target here for this lineman is he's targeting one side of the body or the other. He's not just kind of fitting with his hands right there in the shoulder pad area, keeping his hands inside, his elbows tight, all those kinds of coaching points. As you're coaching these drills, you want to make sure that, hey, the stance looks good, the steps look good, the posture, the pad level, and also the hands when they strike.
Hand position.
Yeah, the hand position is good and his eyes are up, all those kinds of things. So, again, you're coaching every single time. You don't want to try to fix everything all at once. You got 3 seconds, choose something to fix. And once you choose something to fix for that athlete, you're going to make sure that he doesn't do it again next time he comes back around in line. So this coach is starting and stopping quite a bit because he is pinpointing, like I said, all the movements. There might be a false step in there too if I did see it right. But yeah, he's just finishing his block, sealing a block if you have to. If you have plays that are, hey, we need to, get vertical displacement, fine. Practice the drive, practice the finish. There's other things where if you're trying to seal off a block, you want to make sure they get their butts turned, butt to the football or butt to the hole, however you guys want to coach that, whatever the blocking scheme might be. Anything for offensive line as far as EDDs?
Just do them.
Yeah.
Don't be lazy.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg of the things you guys should be doing. We always started one step at a time, right? So get your feet set before even getting a stance, right? Before you even teach stance, where are your feet? Put your feet there. All right, let's practice it again. Put your feet there, and then you work your way towards the
First
drop,
step.
the squat, right? Then you work on the hand. You do everything in steps, and you make sure everybody knows those steps first. Because if you don't get that baseline down first, you don't even get to these drills. These drills would look horrible if you can't even get into a stance. So make sure you do the very baseline fundamentals. You get that down first, and then you can build on those and get into these other fundamental drills that you're gonna need for the game time. So
Right. And again, like Coach Mike said, tip of the iceberg. We're only showing you like this much of actually all the EDDs that you could possibly do at the beginning. And really, none of them are wrong. As long as you're doing them every single day, you're teaching the right coaching points, the right fundamentals to make sure that the kids are going to be successful executing the playbook that you want executed, right? So find those EDDs that kind of support the movements that it takes to run your particular plays, your strategies, your setups. Again, EDDs, how long did we usually run EDDs?
15 minutes.
15 minutes. That's all you get.
We're in that ballpark.
And I was I'll guilty as charged. I always tried to push it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you did.
Yep,
And Coach
did.
Ralph screaming with the whistle in my ear, like, all right, fine.
One more.
So,
I
yeah,
need
one
5 more
more,
minutes.
no,
I need 5 more minutes. These guys
One more.
suck
Then
right
they're
now.
whacking the whistle.
They're
Like,
not
you're done.
They're not paying attention. They're not doing it right. I'm disgusted. I don't want to go to the next drill. I want to sit here and get this right. And Coach Ralph was like, tough, man. You had 15 minutes to get it right. Right. And it's on the coaches.
And again, it's so important to stay on task, because if we go over, okay, now we're taking away time from the next thing we need to do, and then the next thing we need to do. And again, with 2 hours, time efficiency is so important.
And, just to reiterate, we're not saying you got to fix everything in 15 minutes. That's not the goal.
No.
The point is
That's
to
why
get
you do
better.
it every day.
Yeah, you get it better every single day. And then you make the kids accountable. You have to let them know, hey, making a mistake, that's one thing. Making the same exact mistake twice in a row, like that's on you, right? We told you how to do it. We're showing you how to do it. You got a bunch of people in front of you that are doing it correctly. It's your responsibility to get better. And that depends on the effort that they put into it, right? Because they're giving them all the resources. If they're not going to be coachable, if they're not going to focus, listen, and actually try to get better, it's going to be on the kids. And then you get to have that fun conversation with the parents.
Mhm.
Why isn't my kid playing? Come to practice. Watch him.
Yeah.
I would highly encourage all the
sure.
parents to go to practice. Anyway, next EDD
Yes.
drill real quick. I chose this one. It says outside linebacker, tight end key drill. Really, this is a youth football defensive ends drill, right? And it's about as basic as it is. So this drill is basically you have a defensive end that's either going to try to kick him out, block him outside, and the defensive end has to keep his shoulder square to the line and resist to make sure he doesn't get kicked out 20 yards down the sideline, leaving a big hole off tackle. You don't want to do that. Also, if the tight end blocks down and away, he has to squeeze down, keeping, like I said, his shoulder square to the line. The outside shoulder, you can see here, he's free. You have to make sure that these things are being done right. And notice he's not doing this. I know some of you coaches like to coach the boxing defensive ends, is what we call them. So it basically draws a box where it's like, hey, we're going to shoot as deep as the deepest running back, which for some of these offenses is like 10 yards downfield. That's a bad thing to do. Don't do that, right? So you want to take, I hesitate to say even 1 yard. I'd usually say just right at the line of scrimmage, maybe 1
Take
yard.
your step.
1 yard
Mhm.
deep, and then know if you need to set the edge a little bit deeper as the play develops. But really, it should only be, like I said, right there at the line of scrimmage. Maybe a step across the line of scrimmage is what
Yeah,
we
you
usually
should
teach.
you should get past the neutral zone.
Yeah.
That's about it.
So you can see he kind of squeezes down. He didn't keep his shoulder square. That's much better there from a defensive end perspective. You could teach inside foot up, outside foot up. We've done a little bit of both each way. Tomato, tomato for some of that kind of stuff. There's some quickness and some other technique logic that you can use to have the outside foot up rather than the inside foot up. It just depends. We don't want to get too overly critical, at least in this session, because it kind of depends. Now, if you're running stand-up ends, then this is the technique you want. If you're going to run a forefront with stand-up ends, so basically what these coaches are doing is you guys are running 43s and 44 defense, which means 4 defensive tackles or 4 down linemen and 4 linebackers, or 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers. But you stand up your defensive ends, which only happens in youth football that I've seen, and maybe some really bad high schools as well. But the stand-up ends, in the 4-man fronts, is really awkward to me because you're teaching them fundamentals of a stand-up odd front style defense, right? So you're kind of mixing between the two. So if you have stand-up ends, regardless of what defense you're running, these are the if they're responsible for contain, these are the drills that you need to run. And not every defensive end has containment responsibility, by the way, especially in 4-man fronts. That's not always the case.
Right. I think the default thinking is just that, it's just easiest.
Right.
If we
That's
just make
coaching
this
down.
Yeah, right. You are coaching down at that point. So
You're not teaching the kid anything because you want them to get to the next level. Well, just like Coach Matt said, I haven't seen any colleges play it that way. You don't see the pros playing it that way. So it's just like coach them up.
Yep. And as a defensive end here, you can even add things like a snap. If you show ball movement, right, they can get off the ball, try to get them to jump off sides, and then just read the movement of maybe that tight end that's right there next to him, be able to see that in man on the line of scrimmage all the way down to the football to make sure that they know when to get off the ball quickly, right? Basic everyday drills. This would be a defensive day drill, obviously. For anyone who's coaching ends, a lot of times they're going to be separate from the defensive tackles. There's 2 very different EDD drills that you're going to have to be doing here.
Teaching them how to read that tight end. Is he coming at you? Is he going down? There's different things that you have to learn in your body position depending on the guy who's trying to block you.
And you can add little twists to this too as well. As even in this coach in this drill, you can't hear him here, but he's talking about reading the quarterback. If he's going to do like a little read option mesh, what's your responsibility? What's your attack angle? What's your attack point? That backfield shoulder, if that's the case. You can add these coaching wrinkles into it depending on, what kind of offense you're going to face. If you know a team has a wing or even a slot wide receiver or a wide receiver that's trying to come in and crack you, you can practice these things in the EDD drills to make sure that's like, hey, this is what we're going to expect from this team this weekend. Practice it in your EDDs, right? Be successful to these certain key plays. And a lot of teams like to pitch the ball outside. And many times these defensive ends are giving up, that outside shoulder and getting sealed in, and then off to the races they go. And the reason why defensive ends are doing it is because coaches, you're allowing them to do it. You didn't teach them. You didn't practice it, right? You just tell them you need to stay outside. Well, guess what? They didn't play football or know football as many years. They want to know how. And this is where you get it done is in the EDD drills, right? 15 minutes, guys, is all you get to do it. Anything else, guys, from a defensive ends? I mean, there's a bunch of philosophies in there, but what do you guys think? Anything to add?
We
Gotta
covered
be,
it.
yeah, and just be patient at the beginning of the year. Don't try to rush through things. You just create more difficulty down the road.
Right.
Teach.
Yes.
Which backer drill did you want to see next, Coach Mike? do the
I mean,
everyday
we
one?
could do
Or do you
I
want to
would
do
say let's do the
Northwestern?
Notre Dame one.
Notre Dame?
I like the Notre Dame one.
All right, guys.
Because that's going to be probably the most fundamental one that we're going to be doing with linebackers that you'll see probably all season long. Obviously not in the first, first weeks of your season, but this is going to be like a huge one. So
How
right
many
around
minutes in?
5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes. So this is going to be like just a simple way to keep practicing and hammering a downhill attack for your linebackers, right? So where they're going to get in a good stance, we are going to take the correct read step. We are going to take our momentum steps after. We're going to be working on our form tackling. You see him drop his hips, explode, thrust his hips through the man, keep his feet moving. And it's really like a low impact thing that anybody can do with bags or whatever. Even if you don't have bags, I know some teams, you can't afford a lot of these practice equipment. Just have a player with his hands kind of up, run, and it's just a form fit tackle.
Right? Not 100%,
These are
right?
the
They're not trying to kill him.
yeah, we're not trying to go full speed. We're not trying to get anybody injured today, okay? And look, Notre Dame, one of the most prestigious programs in the whole country, right, does this every day.
I noticed
There's no reason.
Coach Mike, talk
And
about the setup here real quick, because I know I see a bunch of stupid stuff on Instagram and online and TikToks and all that stuff by, they run 15 yards apart and they come collide with each other and that kind of stuff.
right.
Why?
Almost never are you going to have a straight head up collision where two people are running right at each other. That almost never happens. If you look at a football game field, it's all various types of angles that players are getting tackled or blocked at. Always. So your practice should be all the various different types of angles that you're blocking and tackling at, right? So with linebackers, same thing. You should not be doing some head up crazy, collision drills. That's a waste of your time. This right here, we're practicing stances, we're practicing downhill, and we're practicing tackle form. This should all be second nature. And it's very high pace. You should have the rotation down. The player should know the rotation. And this is also one of those conditioning things because you
Yep,
do
look
it
at the
over
pace.
and over. Look at that pace. There's one coach right there, maybe two, right? So, and you're just hitting it over and over and over. Now, if you want to get really in depth with it, this coach doesn't do it. I would do it. I'd be right there in the middle with a ball, and I would just do everything on ball movement. If you're doing defensive EDDs, right, you're going to want to do almost all of them on ball movement because in the game, that the play starts when the ball moves. So these linebackers, you're going to get used to that ball moving and then the response, following in your EDD. So this is a good one. And then there's another one at 7.5 minutes that I wanted to go over.
Also, like I said, coaches, you can get caught up. If you're just going to say set, go, set, go, set, go, you're actually building up the wrong muscle memory for these groups too.
Yeah,
because when they go to the
don't do
game
that,
and a
yeah.
team has a cadence that says set, go, and it's on 2, and you're just going to catch your defense just flying off the ball. And guess what?
Oh yeah,
That's
you're gonna
not
have
their lack of focus.
linebackers giving
Coaches,
away their gap responsibilities.
Yep.
It's bad. Don't do
coaches,
that.
that's your fault again. If
One
your
of the
kids jump
most-
off sides, it's your
Yeah.
fault again. All right? Everything they do wrong, guess what, coaches? That's your fault.
Mhm.
One of the most important pieces of equipment in drills, the ball on the stick.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, after a while, dude, my knees be killing me at the end of practice when I'm always
Right.
like on a knee hitting that snap over and over and over. But I'll do it for the kids. But I tell you, I'll never tell the kids, but my knees kill me at the end of the day.
That's a
Sometimes that just stays.
yeah. Because if you complain,
Thanks,
then the
Hutch.
kids start complaining, right? All right, 7 minutes here. Here's another drill. More of
Uh,
it.
So this one is it could be obviously we're lined up kind of the same way, but now we're going to be working on taking on a blocker, right? So in this drill, right, same stance, same downhill, but now there's like a lead blocker. So a lot of teams like to run eye backs or like power sweeps or things like that, and we're talking about coming downhill at a blocker, right? And we're going to be delivering a shiver. Here it is, boom, with the hands. See that? So there's a lot of different hand placements that a lot of linebacker coaches like really get in depth and argue about a lot of times. I like the shiver. One hand is going to punch like right in the middle of the chest, and you're going to push that jersey up into his throat. And the next one is going to club on the outside of the bag. You see a lot of these guys, they'll club on that outside of the bag. And that is for your gap responsibility. Coaches, if your defensive line and linebackers don't know what a gap responsibility is, you don't have a defense.
Yeah, you don't actually
Period.
have a scheme.
You don't. Yeah, you
You
don't
have a
scheme.
formation. Hey, we run a 44. That's not a defense. That's a
It's-
formation.
Yeah, it's a formation. Okay, so you'll see a lot of these guys. They'll respond to the blocker, right? They're taking on their gap responsibilities. You see the punch with the hands. You see the feet moving. There's a lot of little things, and this is really simple drill that any coach could set up. And you see, he's just going down line, boom, boom, boom. Goes back, does it again, boom, boom. You just do it over and over and over. That way, when the game happens and you're a middle linebacker sitting there and they run that off tackle play, that middle linebacker looks like he's the fastest man on the field because guess what? He's done it a million times already. This is nothing new to him, and he can just fly to the ball.
So, Coach Mike, how many times did you get called out saying, "Oh, he blitzes his linebackers every play"?
Yeah, and it's crazy. We don't have a blitz package in yet. Like they're like, well, they're blitzing every place. Like, no, they just know where your ball's going. They go when they know, right? And so if you have the proper keys and your linebackers are making the proper reads, it looks like they're just blitzing the whole time. But for
They're just
some
playing
reason, they're always
downhill.
blitzing in the right way, but it's always just downhill. One of the funniest ones, Matt Lear, right? Everybody thought he was the
Oh,
fastest dude on the field.
He was not.
He was
not
probably one
even
of the
close.
slower, right? They put him at kick return in All Stars, and they're like, "Where did your speed go?" He's like, "I never actually had it." Like, right? So, and it was just one of those things where it's because he knew his key, he knew he was looking at, his eyes were correct, and his responses, his read was correct every time. His footwork was perfect, his hands were in the right place, and so it looked like he was just covering and he was covering massive amount of distance because he was faster to line of scrimmage than the running backs were. He
there's
correct place, correct stance, correct response.
there's a
Every
difference between playing fast and being fast. He
right.
played fast.
He played very fast, and
Yes.
he was not a big kid, and he was not a fast kid, but he looked
No.
like a beast on the field. So there's no excuse that, well, I don't really have the talent, blah blah. No, you do. All right. Kids look fast when there's no second guessing. They're not thinking, right? They're just responding. So there's no excuse why your linebackers couldn't be covering sideline to sideline, running down some of these running backs, especially some of the running backs that I see on these game films. They should be just
Mm-hmm.
bleeding through the backfield every play.
Right. And like I said, for it's a big heads up to the kids that are out there. If you guys are watching this stuff too as well. Again, you don't have to be the most athletic guy on the field. You don't have to be the fastest. You don't have to be the biggest. You don't have to be the strongest. A lot of people say, "Oh, that's just what coaches say to get everyone to be involved, to be a team player." It's like, no. There's a lot of truth to it. If you're the smartest person on the field, you're gonna do damage. You're gonna do a lot of damage. I mean, one of the linebackers I like to call all the time is Luke Kuechly for Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
The ungodly amount of film he put in and all the fundamentals work he put in and just knew where to be. Look at his combine stats. He's not running like, low 4.3s, and he's not 6'5" and 250, 260 jacked muscle the whole way through. He's an athletic guy, but the reason why he was Pro Bowl every single year he showed up on the field is because he did his homework. he was very technical linebacker. He's in the right spot at the right time, and it was no accident. So, all right, Mike, walk us through this next version of basically the same drill that we kind of watched.
Right, right. So one of the things that I used to always tell linebackers is we rip past linemen and we take on lead blockers, right? Whether that be fullbacks or wings or whatever it is. A lot of times you want to. This coach says rip and dip. We would just say rip. But basically, what we're seeing is linebackers ripping past a blocker. You'll see them they're trying to get that leg, like if they have a string attached to their wrist and ankle, and they are going to rip past the blocker. You see how that right leg is getting to the outside of that foot, and he's going to rip through. So you want to get sideways, you want to get those shoulders turned, you want to keep your face forward, but you want to really give a good rip, and then you want to square up and get your feet set right after the rip, because that running back, so you see how he gets his feet set, boom, right after the rip. So, and that's got to be a violent rip, because those linemen are shooting out at you, and they're going to try to put hands on you. That rip is getting both their hands to collapse and come off of you. So you really got to, one, start in a good stance and give a good low rip. So he calls it rip and dip. You see him, those linebackers really dip that hip. Okay, that's probably part of the dip that he talks about. But that getting sideways and see that wrist and ankle are almost in sync as he rips past. So that one's critical for linebackers getting off of a lot of these line blocks that we see in games. And then that breakdown right after he rip past. That's a little deep for me. I really don't like how deep he goes after the rip. Okay, but that's like one of those picky things that we can really get on. And this is also that rip technique is probably the first technique every defensive tackle ever should ever learn.
That's what I
Period.
was about to
Like,
say.
yeah.
Easy modification to this from a linebacker to a defensive tackle spot is all of a sudden
Mhm.
the guy's in a 3-point stance now. You can go head up, defensive
Mhm.
lineman, offensive lineman, right? You can rotate back and forth, and you can say, okay, this side's ripping or this side's ripping. Hey, we're going to rip right. We're going to rip left. 10% resistance, 20% resistance, and maybe at the end, maybe try to get as competitive as possible. At the end, we say, okay, who's going to win, right?
Oh, we're gonna or split the double team drills,
Oh,
like
yeah,
things like
exactly.
that, right? We've done that. Yeah.
Yeah, we call it kind of get skinny, right, with that rip, because you're kind of
Mhm.
really turning the body, same hand, same
Mhm.
foot, making sure that hand comes up too as well, because a lot of times, linemen like to hold, man. They're just not going to let it go. You got to,
Yeah.
get that
If you
damn hand
rip it
off of you.
up, the linemen don't like picking up the jersey to show the ref. But a lot of times they'll just let it go because they won't get called for holding. But hey, if you could announce to the ref, he's holding me, like do it, they'll do it.
Yep,
Rip hard. Yeah.
100%. So, like I said, defensive everyday drills. You could do this literally every day for defensive linemen. Especially, I don't get it. You have I call them looky loos, right? Where defensive linemen or even sometimes a linebacker will come up, engage a full man instead of half a man, which I don't think you should ever really engage a full man. That just sounds like giving them the block. But every time you see a defensive lineman stand up and do the I can't see. I'm peeking off
Yeah.
both sides. It's like you're
Yeah.
getting blocked. He's inside of you now, and even if you wanted to get off one side or the other. And another thing too is when you see that I call them the looky loos, right? When you see people trying to peek one way or the other, they actually don't have an assignment. That's why I know you run just a 4-4 and you just run a formation, but you don't have a defensive scheme. Because the defensive, you would see a move, right? Coach Mike used to get on the defensive lineman all the time. Use a move. Use a damn move, which is a rip, right? You can
Swim
use a
or
rip,
rip.
a swim, spin, which we weren't really big fans of, but you had to use a move. Bull rush was not one of those things that we liked a whole lot. So
The kids just don't have the upper body strength a lot of times at youth football. You might start getting it at the varsity level when they're 13, 14, you would start getting it. But really at the lower levels, they're not pressing kids off of them. A lot of these kids can't bench press anything. So like you're not getting some of these kids who are, 120 pounds at 10 years old. You're not going to expect a kid to bench press a body of 120 pounds off of it. You got to do a move.
right.
Get into your gap responsibility.
And the reason these kids probably don't do it because they don't know which gap they're responsible for anyway. So coaches, again, this one's on you. If he rips into the wrong gap, then so be it, right? Then maybe it's just oops, he didn't understand or didn't hear the call or doesn't actually understand the strategy for that week. But if he's just engaging the guy right in front of him and looking around, you know,
Right.
you got to correct. You pull him out. Pull him out. Even if
Right.
it's during the middle of a game, pull him out. Get him to the sideline, coach him up one play, and be like, hey, you're standing up, you're looking around. Do you know which gap you're supposed to be in? And if he says no, it's like, you got A gap, or you got B gap, or you're inside, you're outside, whatever it might be, however you communicate. But you have to communicate that to him, and then throw him back into the game, right? Make sure you have somebody who knows what they're doing, right? You see it in the EDDs, and then hopefully they show up on game day and execute.
Right. And that brings up, maybe we should do a whole film or a whole podcast on this. Is just, what are coaches doing on game day? What are you looking at? What's your responsibility on game day?
Right.
Right. Because in a game, and if that happens, the defensive coordinator nor the head coach should be saying, "Oh, the defensive lineman went the wrong way." Should be the defensive line coach should be like, "Oh," like right when the play starts, be mad and go to the coordinator, be like, "He's got to come out like immediately." And then you should have the backup ready. That defensive lineman coach should have that backup ready, and the coordinator's like, "Go, bam!" You push the kid out, call the other kid out. Like, it should be real quick. That should all be organized well beforehand. So
Coaches on the sideline should not be fans.
you should
You're
not be.
not watching the game.
Yeah.
You're watching your position.
Mhm.
Too many coaches are screaming and yelling, "Oh, great run, great run." Yeah, but you're a wide receiver coach. So did your receivers block properly? Did they run a route? Did they just stand there? You need to coach your position the whole time.
Right. So that was, we did a bunch of EDD drills, right? Which I think is really the foundational aspect of all your practices, because you know how good your practice is going to go by the pace and execution of your EDD drills. If it looks bad for your group right there, it's going to be a long day. You know, when you get into your everyday drills and then you go to implementation, right? Let's say, hey, this week tackles, you guys are going to have to learn how to kick because this play requires you to kick. Or block down, or we're doing a double team, right? And you're practicing the fundamentals for double teams, right? Individuals, we're still not even practicing as a full offense yet. Only groups come together, maybe a little bit, right? Sometimes you pull the tight ends with the linemen here for the game day implementation. Sometimes quarterbacks go to running backs for the game day implementation stuff. You know, it just depends on what you're trying to run for that day. So now we get into a little bit more of the strategy for that particular week. Are we installing a new play, or are we trying to modify some blocking assignments for defense, right? Are we shifting in a certain way? Are we looking out for certain types of blocking, trick plays? Linebackers, this is where you would, you know, get your keys for the week, right? You know, hey, we're reading tight ends, or we're reading nearest back. Are we reading deepest back? Are we, hey, guys, guess what? I found a tendency in game film. Every time the quarterback or running back does this, this is what we're doing, right? So you can have reads and keys, right? Two different kinds of things, right? Keys is, you know, something right off the snap, and reads is something as the play is starting to develop. That's where your game plan implementation. Again, another 30 minutes here, right? It's a big time. You go through all your 15 minutes of EDDs, build up the muscles that you need to actually do implementation. So now that you have your game plan implementation going, this is where you get into a little bit of your playbook or whatever your game plan is for the day against the opposing team. It's got to make sense for that week, right? Don't just do whatever.
Right.
Right.
So this is when like running backs learn what a 48 sweep is, right? Wing is like, okay, I'm going to block using good EDD fundamentals. This is the guy I'm going to be blocking.
And they
At
just
the
did
same
it.
time,
They just did the EDD.
and at the same time, this running back's going to be working on receiving the toss or the handoff and reading his correct block. And it's all through the same EDDs, except now we have a few different positions all moving together. It's just a few positions, right? Just running backs or just line are now going like, okay, now we're going to get our split center guards, tackles, right? And we're going to have some defensive linemen there. Right? So that's kind of what implementation is. It is not scrimmage. It is a very small group meshing together.
Yep. And you know, every once in a while you might throw, let's say if it's an offense day, and you throw maybe a defensive end out there, how they usually play their defensive end, and say, hey, this defensive end likes to really come upfield. You practice kind of a little bit of those things, some modifications. Hey, they like to blitz A gap a lot. This is what happens when we see A gap. So quarterbacks, we're going to practice keeping our eyes up, still practicing those EDD fundamentals, but we're looking for little things that we're going to see during the game. And then we go to water break, right? So we went through 15 minutes of EDDs and maybe 30 minutes of actually implementation, right? And then it's water break again. You got 5 minutes for water break. And then after that, we have what's called mesh or versus air, right? And that's where you bring the entire offense together and you get to make fun of the coach that couldn't keep up this time around,
Yes.
right? So if
Right.
their group did bad
Right,
in
because he's
EDDs and
sitting
game
there trying to
plan,
correct the last few mistakes that he didn't get to.
and you know it's not always the same group either, right? Because certain plays there's more to pick up than other plays. You're asking more from
Mhm.
certain groups sometimes. If there's a lot of pulling or you know a lot of weird fronts that you see or stunts that you're going to see, offensive linemen may have trouble picking it up in that 30 minutes. Sometimes there's a lot of movement and footwork where running backs aren't able to pick up very quickly, right? And then you'll know because
Or they're slow, and it's, like, so obvious that they're slow because the hole opens up, and they're just so late getting there. You're
right.
just like, "Well, that looked weird," you know?
But that's why you bring it against air, right? You got to see if the timing of the play itself is actually working out, right? Because you
Mhm.
practice all these fundamentals first to make sure everyone is as fast as possible. And you never want to implement an EDD that actually slows somebody down on purpose. If you're resorting to saying, hey, I need this tight end to wait just a second and then go, something's off, right? Something is like you want other people to speed up, not slow down, right? Because you want the play to go as fast as it can possibly go. Don't give the defense a bunch of time to react, right? Now, if you have to slow down people on purpose, you're going to have to incorporate a fundamental footwork, a step of some sort that they can still execute as fast as possible, but kind of hangs them up for just a half second. You can sometimes see that with a lot of wishbone offenses or, big full house backfields, that kind of stuff, where they'll take purposely counter steps, false steps, back steps, just to make sure that the timing actually goes well for a counter or something like that. But yeah, you never want to slow anybody down. So what else do we see in the mesh or air session that we need to call out?
Well, this here too also shows what each group is doing to make it a whole. Why did we block this way? Why did we step this way in the backfield? Stuff we can see why we're doing what we're doing and have it be as a whole, depending on what play we taught. And then you see, well, this is why we taught you guys the offensive line to block this way, because the running backs are coming like this. And it just brings everything together of what we taught separately, but now everybody can see why we taught that.
Right, and now, like, a running back could respond appropriately to, like, a trap pull, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
he's probably just saw bags or cones or whatever set up beginning.
Right.
Now that we're in this mesh versus air, right, he's getting a real full speed look at what the guard looks like when he pulls and how tight he can get to that pull, right? So he's
And then you
really
can,
nailing down the timing. So he's doing all his fundamental steps while Lyman's doing his fundamental pulling and kicking, and that way that timing could go. And it's also important for the
that's
lineman.
the
If
key.
you're too slow, you're getting stepped on. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Now
so
you now
that
you see why you were getting yelled at if you're pulling. Come on, you got to go. You got to go. You got to go. Well, why? Because you're going to get cleated because that running back's going to come right up your behind
Yep.
exactly.
because you're not moving fast enough.
So we have in the practice plan the mesh session or versus air set for basically 10 minutes. And 10 minutes, that's if everything goes well, right? If you come together as a team and things execute well, like you're like, hey, this looks good. Now we can bring people on the field and actually go live with the scrimmage, right?
Right.
You can start
And in the
throwing defense out
beginning,
there.
this may or may not be tough, right? Because you only have like 1 or 2 plays, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if your team's hot, right? If you got a bunch of veterans and they've done this before, man, you're gonna run through those 2 plays a bunch of times and it's gonna look real good. But by the middle of the season, you got 8, 9, 10 plays, and then you got to get through those plays, right? You would hope that the ones you've learned very early in the year, you're so good at them, you just run them once, still looks good. Next one,
Well,
next
we
one,
don't have to
next one.
put the
Right.
the
Yeah.
playbook all in by Jamboree.
Yeah.
It's unrealistic.
We'll need another
Unrealistic.
podcast for that one.
Yeah, 100%. We would for sure. But yeah, so 10 minutes. That's ideal, right? If things are going well. Sometimes it extends, and guess what, coaches? You're gonna have to suck this one up. Sometimes you're not gonna get an hour's worth of scrimmage. If you think scrimmage is actually getting you better, I got a bunch of game film to show you. But you know,
Right. I think on average, when we were coaching, for us, scrimmage on a good day was about 25 minutes.
yeah, I was on
On
a
Hmm.
a good
good day.
day.
That's a good day.
But a lot of times
What
it's less than that.
one thing I want to bring up too: go down to the ground, full speed during your scrimmages, tackle them, go down to the ground. Just don't wrap and let go because that shows during the game.
Yep.
Plus, that's the way injuries happen during the game. How many times of all the years that we coached together, how many real injuries did we have during a game? Very few,
Not
Right.
much.
because we always hit every day and we tackled to the ground. We
Yep.
taught the tackling and they built up their muscle and the resistance
Mhm.
for a tackle.
And if you
There,
coaches are worried about injuries because, oh, live speed, everything, we're not going live all practice, guys. It's
Yeah.
like 15, 20 minutes at most,
At
live speed,
most. At
right?
most.
At most.
And you have to
but
So
you
go full
have
yeah.
speed. You
But
have
you
to.
do have to. You have to bring it up to 10, right? You got to bring that volume up to 10. You got to go for it, right? You got to get that game speed.
Right. And then when you're live, don't practice against your own, like if it's an offensive day, don't practice against your own defensive setup, right? Yeah. The
no,
defensive coordinator should actually be on the other side running that week's opponent's defense out there. He should know that already. He should say, okay, the team we play this weekend runs a 44 defense and they run stand-up defensive ends, so we're going to have to stand up our defensive ends, and their linebackers are back 10 yards off the ball, so we got to make sure our linebackers that are playing, scout team defense, that they have to be 10. You have to simulate as realistic
right.
as possible what you're actually going to face. Don't practice things that could be what ifs, right? It's just you're wasting your time, right? No, practice against
We
stuff
don't practice hypotheticals.
yeah,
Heard
hypothetical.
that before.
Yeah. It's just one of those things like, yeah, you might be able to throw a wrinkle in here and there to make sure your team is being honest and not cheating on certain things. I kind of get that. But at the
Hmm.
same time, practice in reality here. Like you got to practice again. And then if you can, especially during live sessions, don't just practice your ones. You got to practice your twos, right? You got to get them mixed in. Now, I'm not saying you take all your first stringers out and then you throw your second string. Just piece by piece, start plucking
Mhm.
these players and moving them in, right? If you see that, hey, this first stringer really got it down. He knows what he's doing. He knows his stuff. It's like, even if it's after 3 plays, bring the other kid in, have him get some reps, right, against the live. And that makes the scout team probably even tougher to play against, too, as well, because now they got better kids going into the defensive side of the ball, too, as well. And
Please practice your quarterbacks. I don't want to hear, well, my starting quarterback got hurt, so we couldn't run the plays.
that was part of the
Well,
game.
whose fault is that?
Yeah,
Whose fault is that?
it's the coach's fault. Like when I hear
Yes.
that, when it's instead of I know this is what we should have done in practice, I messed up because we didn't get our second enough, reps and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
That's taking ownership. That's accountability, right? But if I hear, oh, our starting quarterback hurt, that's why we didn't do well. That sounds like a damn excuse to me. I don't like that
We
at all.
we've had instances where we knew the first stringer was going to be out for a game. We practiced second, third stringer, and the second stringer gets hurt after the second play of the game.
Yeah,
And it happened to a center,
and
and
that
we ran spin, which is a gun snap.
right.
I
Hmm.
don't want to hear it. I don't. The third stringer went in. He's sweating a little bit. Obviously, he's like, "Oh, this is real.
I'm
This is
last man
real,
up.
right? Yeah, right." But hey, he delivered the snaps. Was he perfect every time? Nah. There's some really off center snaps they have. Some of them a little bit slow, but we weren't fumbling every play. So there has to be
A-
your
Again,
code red plans in
if you know
there.
your first stringer has a special event that they got to get to, and no, the Lodi Grape Festival or the Asparagus Festival or the State Fair is not one of those special events. I'm sorry, but especially
Look at
this
the ripping
upcoming
Chiefs,
weekend
the ripping Knights.
with the Labor Day stuff coming up, right? Okay, oh, we're going to Pismo Beach, right? Like I'm not going to be there that weekend, like okay, first of all, you play football, keep to your commitments, right? But second is like, okay, if you absolutely know one of your players is going to be out, all the way back to your ballistic and dynamic stretches, let's say a quarterback or a center is not going to be there that week, they're not actually doing the cadence and taking the snaps. It should be your number 2 and number 3 at that point, right? You practice from then, right? So that's why, parents, make sure you communicate to your coaches. That way they can appropriately set up their team for success for that weekend.
Don't schedule a trip to Hawaii at the end of the season. You should be planning to be in the Super Bowl.
Yep. You should have that kind of confidence. If you are scheduling a vacation during the season, that shows me you have no confidence that you guys are going to do well at all. Right? You're already throwing in the towel. And I think that's just not the right attitude to go. Don't coach then. Just don't. All right. That was the practice plan run through. We can very quickly go through some game film real quick, and we'll just touch on
Maybe a few plays here and there.
just a few plays, because I know we're already pretty deep here, but we'll reference back. The reason why I want to do the practice plan stuff first is because we wanted to go back and reference all this conversation we just had now watching game film. That way you guys will get the reference, like you need to practice this EDD or that EDD. So let me bring this up real quick. There we go. All right, so this was...
Gotta bring up the video.
Oh, you're right. Let me bring that up real quick. And I'll bring up our video player. Do 50 things at once. Now, let's skip forward.
And we're not picking on any one team. This is just examples.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we could pick on all the teams.
Yeah, we really could.
Pretty much.
Well, I can find anything.
Jamboree's just an easy target, too, as well for us. So it's just
True.
unfair in a lot of ways. But in particular, we're doing the Central Valley Youth Football and Cheer Jamboree. It looks like here we have, again, a 4-4 defense, right, with stand-up defensive ends for the Series Junior Bulldogs. And we have a 2x2 sets out of a pistol with Manteca. First thing, stances, right? Look at your defensive tackles. They're not sliding that foot back like the stances that we were looking at, right? They're not sliding that foot back. They look very uncomfortable in their stance. Yeah. Manteca Cowboys offensive left tackle. I think that's what you're referring to, right, Coach Rao?
Yes, sorry.
Again,
both of them.
Yeah, it's just stances in general, right? If you're not doing your everyday drills for your stances, it's going to look like that. That's how we know you don't do it every single day. Because if you did it every day for 1 month, right, EDD drills, the stances don't look like that. They just don't.
Nope.
What this tells me is they're going to
like
pass.
Even with the wide receivers, one has his hands up and the other one has his hand resting on his knee.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they're staggered, a little bit differently, right? So both slots have both left legs up. Like there's obviously we're missing a lot of details, even if they don't look like that terrible, right? I know just looking, we don't practice stances very often,
right? And whether it's, like I said, offensive line, whether it's wide receivers, anything like that, it just stands out to us right before the snap even starts. So already coaching points right there. What about linebackers, Coach? What do you think about those linebackers? I know what you're going to say. That's why I asked you.
For me, usually linebacker depth has always been an issue because with linebackers, you want to make sure you're the first to the line of scrimmage to beat the running backs. So now in certain offenses, yeah, running backs are kind of far back, they're kind of spread out, whatever, and sometimes your alignment will change based off of that. But usually in youth football, it's like 95% run, get up closer to the defensive line. You should only take one step and you should be able to touch that defensive lineman. They're like almost 5 yards back from the ball. That means you have to run 5 yards if you know the snap count, 5 yards just to meet that running back at the line of scrimmage. It's like a race.
Yep.
So you have to make sure you give yourself the advantage because you don't know the snap count. So don't already put yourself in a hole by lining up so far back.
Exactly right. And outside linebackers, maybe a little bit of wiggle room if you're running 2x2 and those outside linebackers have to flex,
right,
split the difference, whatever it is that you're coaching for your particular scheme, right? But yeah, those inside linebackers, again, Manteca Cowboys, they tried to throw a lot, at least in the Junior Buffs game that we saw. But we even found that a lot of pressure just completely just demoralized that offense too as well, especially at the 10U level. They just couldn't get it done.
Right.
So backing up just a little bit, I'm watching the defensive line in particular. Like I said, I'll just touch on it real quick. They don't throw a move. There's no rip move. It's just the looky-loo, hit, look around, try to find the ball. And if they're not in a good stance, they're getting off the ball, and then it's all of a sudden my eyes are up as I get through, and now I'm just like looking around. I can't find anything, right? If you're in a good stance and your eyes are up from the very beginning, you can find the ball really quickly. But if you have a bad stance, you're already setting yourself up for failure. So no room. Just trying to chase these guys down. Defensive end, EDD drill wasn't there, right? He didn't set the edge.
Nope.
Again, defensive end coming way too far up the field. Oop, that'd be next play.
Yeah.
Watch him flash up the field, the top side defensive end. Look at that hole. That wasn't because of good blocking. That's because he gave it to him.
And then we could also say, look where the linebackers are at. Right? You're already starting way back there. And then, if we want to get even more critical, watch the first step. He did it the last play too. And if you watch this one, it's either to the side. The one before was literally backwards. Your first step as linebacker should always be forward and usually towards your gap responsibility.
A read step.
Some people call it a read step, right? I ended up calling it like a momentum step. So it just, whatever your flavor is for how you're going to teach that, but your weight needs to start going forward. You need to start working downhill as a linebacker. So if your first step is already back or false step or side to side, you're giving up yardage every play.
Yep.
So
And the film don't lie, right? The film doesn't lie. They went kind of to a 50 front here, I think.
Right. And that's all the way back to where do we line up? That's even before stances.
Yeah, look how, we got, I think it's a linebacker that just starts backpedaling out, right?
He bailed.
Is he dropping to coverage? What
Yes.
part of this play told him it was a pass? So far, he's already backpedaling. What position player is he looking at that said, "Oh, this is a pass"?
Right. That means they have no keys.
Yep. No reads, no keys. They're not actually looking at it. They're just find the ball, get the ball.
So when we say a key, right, and this is going to change from position to position, but for instance, like a linebacker, one of their keys might be the fullback, because maybe we go the fullback, especially as a middle linebacker, will tell you where your immediate responsibility is going to be. So if for instance, middle linebacker Mike, a lot of times we key fullback, be like, if he steps towards you, you step towards him, right? So if that fullback all of a sudden takes off to the sideline, then my middle linebacker, he takes momentum step. He goes, oh my God, he took off the sideline, and I'm going to fill in behind. It would be a read, right? So the key is the fullback, and your read is the reaction, right? So obviously what we're seeing here, is they're not keying anybody.
So DN, he's got his eyes in the backfield. He thinks he's going to get this quarterback. He gives up his outside shoulder. He gets blocked inside, gets sealed inside, right? His alignment was initially there, but that tight end knows what he's supposed to do. I got to get to that outside shoulder, right? His right shoulder.
Look at that hand position. That was actually
pretty good.
Good
block. And then he's got him sealed in, and there it goes. And that big guy's not going to get the quarterback. Also, defensive lineman, what are you doing down the line like that? That's that looky-loo stuff, right? You should be coming through the line first. But watch him. That's not a design twist. I'll just tell you, right, you're not going to be able to lie to me on that one, series. Just broken play.
Don't be afraid to hit, guys.
I know Jamboree is kind of different for everyone to hit because you're not hitting people you don't normally hit. But again, you design your practices, right? EDDs gradually increase, the resistance. You go into live. You gotta go live and scrimmage live, right?
Yes.
Again,
you gotta practice like you play.
Right. Scrimmage is not your reps, right? You want to get as many as you can for scrimmage because that's nice, but really your reps come from your EDDs and the game planning session, right? That's where you get a lot of get off reps. What's that?
Is this a 6-man front now?
That's
Four
yeah.
down,
Yeah,
two.
4 down with two defensive ends, stand up
Two
defensive ends.
stand-ups?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
So they
got.
brought up the linebackers.
I guess yeah.
Maybe.
But one of that linebackers goes to the flat right there immediately. So I'm thinking it's
Yeah,
still a
he's like a
4-4,
end
and they brought
linebacker.
the other linebackers up. Maybe
Mm,
it's hard to
So
say.
why?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, a 6-2 against a team that runs a 2x2 set spread out of the gun. Probably
Okay, so
not.
no.
Probably
Right.
not. You got personnel issues.
right. So if you do your fundamentals, you do your EDDs, and you get everything right, you start off the season, you're like, I'm going to do it this way. You will see a huge speed difference in Jamboree.
Mm-hmm. You stop
Okay.
thinking.
One of the greatest compliments that I think I've ever gotten during a Jamboree was when a defensive coach called a timeout. There were no refs. We didn't have refs. But he goes, Coach, time. He's like, I've got to teach real quick. And I gave it to him. I was like, that's fair. It's Jamboree. Nobody's here to win. Because our pace of run the play, done, on the ball, run the play, done, on, and was just over and over and over. And
He was
defensive coach
upset.
literally couldn't catch up. And he just like stopped us.
Yep.
Please wait.
I remember that.
So if you do things right and you don't rush through your fundamentals, you don't try to rush through a playbook before Jamboree. We literally had 4 plays, I think, coming into Jamboree. It was
Mhm.
Yeah, not much.
right. It was sweep, dive. Oh shoot, it might have been only 2.
Yeah, it might have been only
I
2,
don't-
like 4,
we
like 2
might
to
have
the
had a
right and
third
2
one
to
in
the
there.
left. Yeah.
Right? We might have had like some type of trap or something like that, but really, we only had a couple of plays. But we just ran it so crisp and so fast all the time. And we can run sweep right and sweep left. I guess you can call that, 2 plays. But that's literally all it is. So if you can run if you get in a good small handful of plays before Jamboree, you run them solid, you will have coaches begging to slow you down. Just please, like, wait.
Okay, stances. I'm just looking at series offenses here. We got a bunch of stances. He drops the pitch on this one. Again, game plan and implementation session. If you guys are running your toss sweeps, you should have this practiced 40 or 50 times before you ever, maybe in one day.
Run
even,
it.
right?
Right.
Like just run it over and over and over again, right? Taking a
Your
snap,
running back should
pitching.
be gassed.
It's a little
Yeah.
different here. I usually see a reverse pivot for the pitch here on this one, but it's just a regular straight open pitch to the side they're going.
Right. That's one of the more difficult pitches because you can't close the gap between you and the running back if you're the quarterback.
Right.
The reverse pivot at least gives you a good like flowing motion and stepping towards the
Mhm.
back.
Yeah.
Close the gap. If that single step toss, that's a tough pitch.
Right. That fullback is unusually deep for a double wing formation. Right. So
Like
it's not
almost 6
a
yards.
traditional double wing. They run like a wing T style stuff. This pitch is probably the only thing that most closely resembles the double wing series, I guess you can say, rather than just the wing T where you do a lot of dive and end around motions and stuff like that. The waggles, the boots, the buck sweeps, so to speak. That's the old school terminology. But offensive lineman stances, and also if there's no scheme. It doesn't look like there's a blocking scheme, right? It's just I'll be honest. It looks like it's blocked the guy closest to you. Because
It's
if
hit
you,
somebody.
it's hit somebody, and the problem is you know that the kids don't know based on, okay, I'm one of these linemen and there's nobody in front of me and they do not know what to do. They are lost. You'll see them stand straight up, and they're just like, oh, whoever comes to me, right? Like I guess that's who I'm gonna block. All right, Coach
That
Mike,
left guard.
tear up this handoff.
Ooh. Scoop.
So
Maybe
again,
that's
when
why
we
he
talk about
fumbled
those EDD drills, right? He's trying to clamp with just his hands instead of both ends of the football, right?
See how far his hands are from his body?
Yep.
He's reaching.
I'm not sure the quarterback is trying to stick it to the gut, right? You're not trying to hand him to his hands as a quarterback. You're trying to stick the pocket, right, that he's forming, but there's no pocket to aim for, and it just bounces all over the place.
Yep.
The running back should be going oof each time they get a handoff.
Right. I want you guys to watch the left tackle here, right? So it looks like we have a tight end that's got his hands on somebody, but the left tackle is uncovered, right? So watch what
And
they
he just
do.
kind of wanders.
He's
Yep. Who do I hit? Where do I
just
go?
Lost. So usually, I mean, the biggest tip I can give for blocking schemes is have like a saying that you go by, a progression that they have to go by. And the most simple one that I can think of just off the top of my head is unironically God, but gap on down, right? So if there's somebody in your inside gap, that's who I'm blocking. If there's nobody there, then it's who's on top of me, right? If it's somebody right in front of me or a linebacker, right? And if those things don't happen, you go down away from the play. So if it's going outside of me, I got to go down. I'm looking, I'm kind of blocking down. I'm going to help this inside guy, or I'm looking for a linebacker that's down. Gap on down. For 90% of the offenses that we see, that actually should probably be the basic blocking scheme. Gap on down, right? And that would
It's the easiest.
Yeah, it's one of the easiest things to do, right?
I
Obviously,
think we called that stick roll, right?
Yeah, we
I
had something
brought out
called
a
stick roll.
We
Yeah.
actually
Brought
brought
out-
the stick
I
out.
literally one of those push brooms, and I took the stick off the broom,
Yep.
and I brought it to practice, and I said, "Put that stick, put it right out in front of you. Is it hitting anybody? No. All right, move it away from the hole." And the first person that stick hit, that's who you're blocking.
And
Yeah, I
it's
never did get
basically-
that broom
it's
put back together.
we used to see
bro.
people either in scrimmage or even in the jamboree where a lineman would go up and he'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, that's who I'm going to block. Oh, that's who I'm going to block.
Don't do that. Right? Don't give away. You're signaling who you're blocking, but like
It's
sometimes-
learning.
It was in their head though.
Yep.
was
They knew the assignment.
Yep.
right. They weren't out trotting, like lost horses.
And
Oof.
dancing, trotting.
The tough
Yeah.
part about pitches is the running back actually has to take his eyes down and catch the pitch, and that's why you give him a little space to do it. Oh, Mike, this running
Yeah.
back.
I cringed. Look at that arm.
That's a wrong
There's so
arm
many
up.
things.
It's a wrong arm is up.
One, he's probably looking at the ball, but the wrong arm is
Mhm.
Look how long it took him to actually get the ball secured.
secure. That's because
It's
of the
not
way
there.
he took it.
It's not secured there. It's still not secure there. And then he's like, oh no, still he's at the hash mark and the ball still isn't secured. Now it's secured.
Right before he gets hit.
Yeah. As a running back, you don't want to be messing with that football ready to take a hit. Like it makes you ineffective. You don't want to cut. You just want to protect the football at that point. You don't even want to score a touchdown. You're just like, oh my God, just don't fumble.
The moment that ball hits that sternum, that low part, right above the stomach, that the ball should be secured by then.
Yep.
Like even if it's a bang bang, like you barely touch the ball and you get tackled, you have two hands on the ball. You shouldn't fumble it. Right?
Again, wrong
That's
arm
a
up for that
worst-case
running back
scenario.
there.
So
And it's too bad because this running back wasn't bad. He just couldn't get the ball correctly to do his moves to look up.
right, wrong arm up again.
Good example for offensive line EDDs here is if you're practicing that arrow drill or the steps where you're just shooting your hands and you're stepping wide feet, right, and moving
Chop, chop,
upfield.
chop, chop,
right?
chop, chop.
I know they're not doing those EDDs because look how much vertical displacement this line gets right off the ball, right? Or just watch actually just the get off, right? The overall get off.
Our first step.
Everyone stands
Straight
straight
up.
up.
Yep.
And we
Everyone
got
stand up.
only a running back is deepest. At that point, we might have had a line that they're just waiting for the defensive line to get them. Offensive line, get your hands on them as fast as possible. You do not want that guy getting away from you, even for a split second. Get your hands on him. Shoot those hands. Then popping stops, right?
Yep.
We call it a pop and stop. Where
That's
you just hit him once.
mostly the case.
Yeah, watch. Big guy, I think left tackle here, or excuse me, left guard in the black jersey. Boop, hits him, and that was it. It just stopped.
My job is done.
Not good
Walking
enough.
during the play. Look how
Lock
much
him up.
walking.
Lock him
Ugh.
up.
You should never be walking during a play. You should be.
Yeah, look how slow developing everything. And I know it's jamboree. I'm going to tell you right now.
Look at those zombie
you're-
walkers.
You're
Oh
not.
my
Yeah,
God.
you're not going to be able to lie to me and say that week one. Oh, that didn't happen anymore. I don't believe you. Show me the film. Right? Show me the film.
Mhm.
And if you don't got the film, why don't you have the film? Pay a high school kid or a parent or somebody 25. We'll give you free snacks and free entry for the game. Can you just please go up to the booth and do the best you can with film? Right? Here's a camera. Like, do the
Yeah.
best you can.
We've had bad cameramen, but we've had cameramen. So.
Yes. And sometimes it's just bad. Like, they're volunteers. We get it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Coaches, if you're not learning something every day and trying to improve things every day. There's something wrong.
Good run there. A little bit
Ooh,
of a horse collar.
Right.
right.
And one of the things is you're not going to be, the creator of the Texas air raid or Kentucky air raid, right? You almost nobody is the inventor on purpose,
Also, there's not too much more to invent.
right?
You can just rename it like the
Right.
V.
The
You
V. Yeah.
could put your own twist on it. We have unapologetically stolen everything.
Yeah.
Literally.
I
Quietly.
ran
From
spin.
Wishbone.
It was almost verbatim stolen from a Louisiana
Mm-hmm.
coach.
Yep.
Right. The only reason why I knew about it is because we got beat by that offense. So the year prior, and I wanted to know everything about it. So
Blocking. Definitely block. Like, look, every offensive lineman is waiting for the defensive lineman to get to him.
right.
It's
Fire out.
They gotta fight. They have to get their hands on them
Right.
now, and that starts with the EDDs. If they don't rep it and they're not used to firing out and getting in their hands on them before they can make a move, it's not being drilled. It's just not happening. And you can see it every single lineman.
Right. With
Mhm.
linemen, right? You got a lot to think about before even the ball snapped, right? You got your split, right? And you got your stance, and then you got to know who you're going to hit before the ball is even snapped, right? You got to do all those. You got to know all those things. And so here, like the splits look a little iffy to me. Stances are definitely way off. You're never going to get that fire out if you don't have those things.
And again,
solid.
we are not dragging your offensive formation or play call checklist like at all, or your defense. Maybe how you run it, but we're not actually saying your 4-4 is a bad choice. Don't run the 4-4. Like, that doesn't make any sense to us. The 4-4 works great in a lot of cases.
Yeah,
Especially in
4-4
youth football. Yeah, we ran 4-4. There's nothing wrong with 4-4. There's nothing wrong with double wing, right? I don't think you abandon this at all. We think just run it right. Just don't add plays.
The
right?
fundamentals.
I don't think a trap is appropriate if you're running against a 4-4, right? Because it's just hard, right? Already it's just hard. You got 8 people in the box, and the separation between the nose and tackle in an odd front is much smaller in a 4 front when you have those 2 defensive tackles there. So getting a trap working there, very tight space to get through as far as a trap. You have to be damn good at it. If you install it and that's how you look like right now, it's not going to work for you. It's just not. You don't have enough time to get it clean. You have much bigger problems to worry about. Just stick with the offense you got now.
Even this, the right is Tracy Bucks, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot you can nitpick them at, but it looks like they got splits and stances down.
Something they'll build off
And
of.
look how
And
big the
clean.
holes are, right? I mean, yeah, it
Series looks
looks like
bigger
the
and faster.
splits are fine. The stances, sure, you could really nitpick, but really, like, the stances aren't that bad. It looks
Well,
like
look, they even fire off.
there's some type of get off, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you can really, like I said, you can nitpick, but it's Jamboree and it's a younger level. You understand a lot of these things. So, but it looks like they know where they're going, and look how big those holes are,
Yep.
right?
They're
It's not
clearly
that
ahead.
because they have faster running backs or bigger kids. No, they got a
More
split.
efficient.
Even with
They
out
get
of
in the
position as the
stance,
defense is,
and some of
they're
those
still
stances-
catching these guys.
Yeah, but they're going to the right way. They're going the right direction. So
They even pulled a guard right there
They
to
try.
seal.
that's a little, that's
A little more
getting
advanced
fancy.
for this level
Yeah.
this early, right? And that's fine.
But good for them.
It's a great hit on the sideline, but be self-aware, young man. Check this out. There's a line of scrimmage. There's 5 yards. There's 10 yards. You hit him at 13 yards. Great hit. Awesome hit. Still a first down.
And that's what everybody's going to be going, oh, my God, yay.
Instagram.
Yeah, but he got 13 yards on it.
And I'm guilty
and
too
10.
because I'll probably
Yeah.
clip it and put it in the highlight.
Right? Yeah, I would definitely go
Probably.
out.
I'm really nice to you guys. But if I was your coach, it's the opposite. I would.
Right? Breaking down when we go to tackle, right?
Also, why are you celebrating? That's a first down.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be different. It was in the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
Jamboree was hard to film. We were back and forth just trying to get every single play we could. So sometimes we get half a play.
Yep. Ooh.
I want to see this play.
That
again.
should have been a pick six.
So, I mean, just right now, like how many different plays have we seen?
Too
from
many.
series here,
Too many because
right?
it's not clean enough.
I've lost count of them at this point, right? There
So
were
this is
swing
I-back. This is a whole new
passes.
formation.
There were multiple formations. I mean,
If it was clean, it'd be a different story.
right?
Yeah.
Going into a jamboree, we had 2 formations, right? It was red and blue.
Yeah.
Which is basically like
The equivalent of right or
to
left, or
I right and I left for
Yeah.
people. Like the wings just on the other side. That's all it was.
a strong
And we
right,
didn't-
strong left.
Yeah. Right. So
So
You don't win jamboree.
yeah.
right off the bat, like I said, we got left guard just standing straight up. That's a fundamentals issue. That's on you, coach. Right? That's not allowable. Also, the snap exchange is really slow because everyone else seems to be moving and the quarterback is still stuck under center here.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been a good play.
Yeah, I think the design concept is fine.
Yeah. Just throw it over that
But
defensive end. That's fine. Especially if you have those boxing defensive ends. Try to come up field.
And go to the ground during practice.
And really,
look how long that play lasted.
You know, I watched the Buffs, right? And one of the big tendencies that they have is their defensive ends do flash upfield quite a bit. Okay, so if you're trying to get outside this team, that's not the path of least resistance. Look at that off tackle. You didn't even have to really block anybody. Like it's super open.
Taking himself out of the play every time.
Yeah, let him go. Shoot, we'll run right
But
off.
that's got to be recognition from the coaches. Oh, look, this is what happens. Let me adjust something and run that way.
And that's ultimately what this running back did. He just took that hole.
Mm-hmm.
I know what a great cut back to the outside, though. Not going to take anything away from him. Also, secure that ball, young man.
Right.
Swinging that ball too much around too much traffic. If you really out in the open, then fine. But if you were not home free.
Right. Look up Tiki Barber on YouTube.
Yes, Tiki Barber, Tiki Barber.
Yep.
Great running back. Overkill on the fundamental side, but
if you want to know how to hold the football correctly, there's a reason why he went to the extreme of the fundamentals that he did.
Yeah. Again, another time where the off tackle is open because that defensive end. Look, he's 3-4 yards upfield and underneath.
And we have running backs going the wrong way.
Yeah, this is just not
probably
knowing.
A product of just too many plays,
scrimmage,
Yeah.
right? Mm-hmm. Not actually knowing, not actually teaching. Again, Mike said too many plays. Yep, we're doing too much thinking out there. I don't like the pitch placement on this one. When you're pitching to a running back, it should never slow him up. Watch how he has to stop and wait for this ball.
Yep, because he threw it.
Caught it on his back left shoulder.
Yep, that's why you drill that pitch over and over and over again because you don't want him to slow down at all. You want him to be in stride, caught. Don't loop it, man. Get it to him. Get it to him. That one-handed pitch just gives me nightmares.
Yay, Michael Logan.
Yeah. Hot potato. Okay, I want to see the blocking nightmare that this was. Hold on. Center. Snap and step, right? You look at this during ballistic stretches, right? Your quarterback's calling the cadence. Your guys are getting off for stretches and stuff. When your center snaps the ball, is he taking a step? Or is he just, and I see it all the time in warm-ups, center just lazy, set, go, snap, takes no steps, stands straight up. Right? No, every time he snaps that ball, he needs to have the fundamental of staying low, taking a nice 6-inch, very fast step, shoot the hands, right? As quickly as possible.
Yep.
But that fundamental's not there.
Yeah, it should be in everything you do. Not
but
just
coach,
during EDDs. It's everything. Every time you do it like you would do in a game.
And
it's only Jamboree, coach.
Yeah, but you catch it in Jamboree, you bring him out. This is the time where you get away with it. You're like, hold on, wait, coach, we're real quick. We just need to coach something up real quick, right? Timeout.
Yes.
Right. And hurry up and coach it up real quick. That's what you got to do.
And just because your play gains 10 yards doesn't mean it was good.
Right.
You were lucky.
Maybe, yeah, sometimes lucky. Right. right? And then you're all surprised, like, I don't know what happened. We went in, we killed everybody in Jamboree, and then week 1, we just got smashed. We couldn't even score. Why? Because we jump off sides. Most frustrating. And this is, guess what? This is not the kid's fault. Not the kid's fault. Okay? Bet you defense, bet you defensive guy doesn't simulate a snap, just says set
Coach
go,
doesn't simulate snaps.
right? And this is, and they have,
Because we were talking about that linebacker fundamental of getting on my knee and doing ball movement. It's because you didn't do that. Instead, you were just saying set go.
yep.
And that's why he jumped offside. Get on your knee, put the ball on the ground, move it.
Yeah. Stop being lazy. This goes for all the coaches. All the coaches. Stop being lazy. It's physical game for the coaches too. Like really, I mean, besides like maybe like head coaches. Yeah, this one just
Probably gonna be bad.
Yeah. Besides like head coaches in the NFL, like how many fat coaches do you see?
I love the strength and conditioning coaches the most.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Those
The
guys are
most psychos.
those guys got better PRs than half the players on the team.
Yeah.
And the Washington
Right.
strength
But
coach.
if you
Oh my
look
God.
at like wide receiver
Insane.
coaches, right? DB coaches, they're usually pretty lean, right? And like the linebacker coaches, they're also like they're pretty intense. They're usually pretty big too, right?
Ken
'Cause
Norton Jr.
right? That guy not Pete Carroll, what is he like 90? Like he's not, he's still moving, throwing ball. Like, come on now. Like, if he's got it, what are you doing?
That's funny.
So I think the giveaway here and a good catch. I mean, you have to think. Okay, a team that normally runs I backs all the time, right? All of a sudden they go to split backs. This is as old as time itself. Every time I saw a team that was normally I backs, all of a sudden switched to split backs. Pass, look for the pass, right? Corners would jump this route.
Why? Why has it always been that way?
Well,
What was the reasoning
So
behind it?
I know the really shallow logic is because I backs are set right behind the quarterback, and so when the quarterback has to take a drop, he can sometimes run into his running backs because they don't know how to coach pass protection out of the eye. So what they do is they'll split the backs apart, and they say you block the end on this side, and you block the end on that side. Except for that's a key tendency, which means every time you go split backs, you're telling the defense, guess what? We're gonna throw before the play starts. Hey, we're gonna throw. Disgusting. It took just a long time, too. 72 should have been I would have been right up in that wide receiver's face being like, I know this is going to be a throw. And having a tough time fighting to stay outside. We do okay, but see this end? He just came so far upfield.
So this is one of those situations where you see like the line looks like they know what they're doing, but the backs are just like so lost and slow. Like look at the push, right?
Fullback
the
goes the
line
wrong
they're
way.
getting they got in a stance, they have some semblance of a get off, they're getting hands on people. Look how long it takes the running backs to actually get the. If there was some speed, they would have hit that hole and it would have been daylight so quick.
Look at that defensive end. He completely turned away and then ran away. Look at no.
So far upfield, he's like, hey, I turned it back inside. It's like,
yeah.
You should come upfield.
We showed the EDD state to keep your shoulders square to the line. Don't flash upfield, right?
Use that inside hand.
Boom, you should have attacked it.
Oh,
he's just getting kicked hardcore.
It's tough to watch.
Yeah, and again, that rip and dip drill, anybody right here on that top side of the screen could use the rip and dip at this point. But they just decide to avoid the blocker, turn and run, and give up even more yards instead of ripping.
Just like push on them, like stay like engage them. That's the worst.
Some resistance, right?
Get off the block. Don't be blocked.
Hey, but it was a perfect play. Look, he got a touchdown.
The parents are cheering, and
coach is a genius.
Quarterback doesn't know what to do after the handoff. He just thinks he goes out and blocks out in front.
Carrying out a fake, right?
You should be carrying out a fake.
during
Every single drill.
your
A boot.
right, your when you bring in the groups together, right? You do your game planning situations.
Yep.
Carry the fake always, right? Even running backs, right? If you get fake to, act like you got the ball, right?
Every
Full
single time.
speed. If you start trotting after they fake it to you, they know you don't have the ball. Act like you got the ball.
If you can pull one defender, just one, to look at you for like maybe a second, you did your job. Just to look
Yes.
at you, right? Because that means he's not looking at the play, right?
Right?
Mhm.
Just freezing them.
Yep. That's what you need to do. So just to kind of cap everything off, like that probably comes off as pretty harsh if this is the first time you've been hearing some of this stuff. But talk to any high school coaches, right? You know, we did Colston from Central Catholic, and you can pretty much go to most, varsity high school coaches, and they'll tell you, like, yeah, no, that's basics. That's 101. If you're not doing this stuff, you're not doing a good job. That's the harsh reality. If you're not doing this stuff, you don't have a practice plan. If you're scrimmaging for close to an hour a day, if you're not doing EDDs, and if you're not pushing the pace of practice, and chances are, especially at the youth football level, if you got 15 to 20 minutes of gassers and conditioning and stuff, you're not being efficient with your time. You're just not doing a good job. That's, I know some people are gung-ho on the conditioning and stuff, right? But you can do both. The fact that you don't want to coach at a high pace and a high energy, and you would rather just blow a whistle and have them run or do up downs as punishment or whatever it might be, you're just not being efficient with your time. You're actually not that good of a coach.
What cracks me up is these guys that scream and yell and scream at the kids. Well, no, you need to turn it right back at you, because the louder you scream, the more evident it tells me you don't know how to coach it.
Yeah. You're outing yourself every single time.
Yes.
When during the live stream, you don't hear us say any of those things, right? But me, Coach Ralph, and when Coach Mike looks at the film, we're dogging you guys. You're outing yourself as a coach that doesn't know what he's talking about, right?
Just because you're screaming and yelling isn't coaching the kids up.
It's not.
They don't know.
Now, if a kid is truly just like clueless, not messing up, first of all, it's your problem. You put him out there. And if he really didn't know, like, how did you not know he didn't know what he was doing out there?
Mm-hmm.
He shouldn't be on the field. Take him out. I don't care if he's the fastest on the team. I don't care if he's the biggest, strongest. If he doesn't know what he's doing, he's useless.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that's a little bit of breakdown from the practice plan to watching some game film, how you should watch the game film and say, these are the things we need to work on. Watching that game film, I would say offensive line, we're working on stances and get-offs. I don't care. We're not putting in a new play this week because we got to get stances and get-offs right. We are so far behind. What do you think, Mike? What are we doing for running backs?
You got to line up correctly.
Yeah.
And then you have to get in a stance correctly. And then you have to run the right way.
That pretty much sums it up for the whole team right there.
Yeah.
Do that. If you can't line up correctly, you are never going to be successful. You offense and defense, line up correctly. Get in a correct stance. Literally spend a practice doing that. That's all. Like, out of all the years and all the teams that we've coached, the only offensive line that I got to actually do a kick slide, teach a kick slide. I got 2 practices for one team on teaching a kick slide. That's the farthest I've ever got with fundamentals for linemen.
And what level was that?
One time. I was JV. I was a 12U level.
That's my
It
point.
was amazing. I was like, this line was, I mean, they were sponges. But then again, most of them were, I got them as veterans, and that can kind of have its own implications. But if they're excited about football and you set the certain pace in the beginning and you just let them know that we're not moving on until we get this right, it encourages them to really get it right and not to slack off. If you build that into your EDDs, you do that, you start progressing and progressing, then you find yourself, oh my God, I get to teach a kick slide today. I never thought I would teach a 12-year-old how to kick slide. So.
Always coaching up.
Right.
So many of the coaches that I see out there, well, they're only 8. Well, they're only 10.
You
Well,
can get there.
there's your there's your example. 12U running option. 12U running spin. Going deep into the playoffs with the
No
spin.
huddle spin
Yes, that's right.
with
Wristbands.
signals.
Yep.
And
You can teach any kid at that level
Mhm.
anything if you know how to coach it.
You be patient.
yes,
Yes.
You are not
patient.
gonna hit it day 6, day 7, and that you're just not. You've got to know that it's a gradual, literally step-by-step process.
Yep. Boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
Even
Don't skip.
One teaches this,
yeah,
teaches that.
even high school, college, and NFL coaches, their playbooks are big, right? They're huge, but they never go in thinking we're going to have all of it in by week 1. Like that's just not a thing that ever happens. They say it's
No.
this big, but we may only have the personnel that only covers that can execute it half, just from an athletic standpoint. And then there's that big of a playbook, and it's just okay. Well, how smart are we, right? So we got to do the basics first, and then
Mhm.
hopefully we can expand that playbook. But there's no
Right.
sense in installing the whole playbook and being terrible at all of it. You might as well just do a handful of things, do it well, especially in youth football. That's going to win you championships, right? If you just break it down to the
Mhm.
basic stuff, right? It's that it's probably dating myself, right? But the Disney movie, Remember the Titans, right? We
Mhm.
run split veer, we run 6 plays, works like Novocaine. Just give it time, right? And he didn't
Yep.
run a big playbook. He ran a basic playbook. State champions, right? It's just one of those things.
Rem, we are Marshall. He wanted to run
Power
certain
eye,
playbook,
power eye. God damn it,
but
Matthew
then he
McConaughey.
changed everything because he didn't have the personnel to run it.
Right.
You have to be flexible. You have to play to your, what kind of team you have. Don't say I'm going to run this and force it down and never get it done because you don't have the right personnel to run it.
Again, every time we hear the coaches say, we just didn't have the talent, the speed, the quarterback, the running back, it's just a bad excuse. Like, I put on a smile on my face as I'm talking to you, but I'm thinking, boy, you messed up. You messed up.
You
like,
could have run
ask
this.
for help. And to the coach that did ask us for help too as well. A lot of this
Thank
criticism
you.
does go up to a big thank you.
Yes.
I know this might be tough to hear, all this stuff, right? And I know even from a young coach's perspective, right? When we first started coaching, everyone wants to jump into the X and the O's. Oh, I think if we ran these plays, hey coach, what do you think if I tried to install these plays? I think it would work. And so it's like I'm just sitting here thinking, man, your stances suck.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna be
How you going to
truthful.
block it?
You really
Yeah.
want my honest opinion? I wouldn't put in a play at all. I would try to get your stances right first, because it doesn't matter what play you're trying to put in; it's not gonna work.
Yep.
I could suggest all the plays that would probably work against the defense you're going up to, and it's not gonna matter. And you're gonna think, oh, that coach doesn't know anything. It's because you don't have any of the fundamentals and techniques down. You got to do that first. You have to. You just have to. And if you can't swallow your pride and say, okay, they're right, we'll work on fundamentals and stuff like that, right? And it's not going to be a fix overnight, but I guarantee you're just going to see a whole nother level from your team, because they'll know how to execute even the playbook that you currently have in. So
Humble yourselves. Be
Yep.
humble.
There
Always
are
learn.
there are games I still think about to this day that happened decades ago that I'm like, I wish we would have practiced this more so we would have came out on top. I wish I
Mm-hmm.
would have taught this differently. I wish I would have done this instead. And I just carried it with me, and I always remember a lot of the lessons that I learned. You gotta drop that ego and pride and blame it. You just gotta look and just be like, listen, I messed up here. I practiced the wrong way. I taught it the wrong way. Should have done this instead. And yeah, we would have probably came out on top. Like that's kind of the attitude you got to have to it. You just gotta drop the ego. There'll never be a benefit to you. So, yeah.
So this, I've kind of make a decision on the fly here. This one's not going to be a members only podcast. This
Thank you.
one I'm going to put out to everybody. All right. And I'll end with this. We, looking back all those years, and we met a lot of really good coaches. I mean, and it seemed to be everywhere. There were good coaches everywhere. You know, when the valley was much, much smaller, right? We didn't have as many people, we didn't have as many teams, but damn, we were crisp. We were fast off the ball. People were hitting each other. And you knew what the other team was going to run, and you were still, like, you knew everything about it, and you still were uncertain that you were going to pull out a win because the other coach was damn good. And you had a respect and a competitive edge for that other coach on a first-name basis, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and what happened is tragic. I will say it's not around anymore. It's just really not around. If you think you're part of that coaching culture, it's no, probably not. Most likely not. In only rare instances where maybe high school coaches are coaching down to youth football, you see that. But they laugh. I mean, they destroy some of these teams out here. And the talent level has increased substantially in the Valley in recent years. I mean, they are doing some incredible. They are bigger. They are faster. They're doing the craziest things. They're trying to get work in the off season and everything. And then when they come out in the fall season, it just looks terrible. They're slow off the ball. They're thinking too much. We are hurting these kids. So the big call to everybody right now in the 209, the coaches, I mean, we are this close. We just, first of all, we got to get over the ego, right? We are this close, man. If we could just be like, hey, we're going to actually put in a practice plan, kind of close, right? I'm going to spend 15 minutes, think about what I want to do minute by minute, and then divide and conquer the practice play, you know, the practice for that day. That, just that right there will just make us head and shoulders. That's national recognition that we're looking at that point. Right now, we are just a tiny portion of Northern California that gets no respect. We have the talent that is national level stuff, but our coaches are holding us back right now. And it's so disappointing. It is entirely disappointing. So, again, watch through this whole thing. We appreciate everybody watching. If you stuck around this long, thank you. Hit subscribe and like. But yeah, this is going to be a full podcast for everybody that I think every coach needs to watch, and parent too, and maybe even some players out there. So, all right, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next time.